Hey guys, welcome to the 55th episode of Let's Talk Comics, where myself and another co-host in the comic book community discusses one of the many facets of the storytelling medium that is comics. Whether it be stories, creators, constructs, or adaptations, we hit it all. This week, of course, I am rejoined by my partner in crime, the most explosive comic book YouTuber on the internet, Comic Boom. What's going on, brother?
Not much, man. Just had a good day at work. Just been just relaxing. I know that we don't have much of a topic tonight. We're just shooting the shit. So looking forward to that and drinking.
Yes, that is a thing. And with that, before I blow my brains out because of this really annoying audio static, shall we take a cheers?
Yes, cheers.
Oh, wow, that's smooth. Curious what everybody's drinking tonight, by the way, if anybody is joining us with a couple. Let's see. Antuhar says, hey, y'all. What's going on, bud? Thanks for joining us tonight. Taylor Pector saying, hey. Mark McKeever affording you a compliment, my friend. He says, boom, love that history of the DC Universe cover behind you. I still have mine with the pin.
The history of the DC Universe cover behind me. I'm not. Oh, yes. So the portfolio. Yes. Oh, this thing.
There you go.
This thing. Yeah, it's actually kind of cool. It's got a bunch of prints in it from back in the day. It's pretty good. Yeah, it's nice.
But there you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so what was it? Is it like literally like a DC encyclopedia type deal?
Well, it's back from 1996. It's got all these various prints on it from Jerry Kurt, Swan, Dick Arellano, Joe Kubert, George Perez, Steve Little, Keith Giffen, Brian Boland, John Byrne, George Lucia Garcia Lopez. Some of the ones are really nice here.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, they're really nice. They're black and white prints from back in the day. Some really
nice.
The level of detail is pretty good. I don't know if you can really see all that there, but it's
wow,
just beautiful. Yeah, one day I always wanted to get these things signed, but some classic prints.
Yeah, wow, those are great.
George Perez. My favorite is the Jonah Hex, which is this one here. Look at that! Look at the detail on the face.
Wow, that's super well done.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's me after about 12 Corona.
I think you're over exaggerating. I'd give you about 4.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out.
Won't we? Oh boy. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna pop myself. I think because the chat room will stay open, I'm gonna pop myself out and then jump back in and see if the audio static goes away. So shoot the shit with people for 2 seconds.
All right. Yeah, guys. I would check out. I discovered 2 new artists this week. There's the artist on Wonder Woman. There's this new artist. He's new to me, anyways. His name is Jack Herbert. His art on Wonder Woman is just incredible. He's new to me, but the level of detail is incredible. The backgrounds and everything. Most of you guys probably aren't into Wonder Woman, but the art's fantastic. The other artist on Justice League Odyssey, there's a Darkseid battle here where he battles Epoch. The artist is Will Conrad. His art is fantastic. The Darkseid war, the Darkseid battle between Darkseid and Epoch and Justice League Odyssey is just insanity. It's fantastic. This has turned into the best Justice League title, and it started off as arguably the worst, but it's quickly become the best, and it's just really, really epic. Some of the best art I've seen in a long time in any comic.
Yeah, I dropped Odyssey a while ago, and I've been recently noticing some of the interiors being shared throughout the internet, and that art is really, really nice.
Yeah, I know it's he's definitely going to be an artist that's going to be on different titles because they're gonna scoop him up because that's some of the best, easily some of the best art I've seen in a long time, and that series is absolutely insanely underrated. I mean the battle between Darkseid and Epoch is actually what it's crisis level, because it involves the multiverse and time, but no one's talking about it and everyone's ignoring it. And it's infinitely better than I think cohesively than death metal. And death metal is just insane on a different level. To me, death metal is just like insane, crazy, zany, psychedelic fun, more Elseworlds.
You forgot the word
death metal to be DC Universe, to be honest with you.
You forgot the word bad.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'd say bad, but it's just at the end of the day, when it comes to death metal, I got to stop complaining. It's not even that I get what he's trying to do, but it's just not. It just doesn't have a DC Universe feel. But look, it's selling a lot of comic books, and it's keeping the industry alive. And to the extent that DC isn't already decimated administratively, it's probably keeping some people their jobs. And so, it's kind of a double-edged sword or triple-edged sword. I don't know, but it's I guess it is what it is. I just feel like it just doesn't feel like the DC Universe to me. It feels like trying to sell toys for Batman. That's what it feels like.
It just feels like a bad comic book to me. That's all I can say. Boom, do you wanna try maybe reconnecting?
I'm gonna go in and out again here.
Yeah, go ahead, and I'll address a couple of these greetings in the chat here. We have a Comic Breakdown just saying, "What's up? What's going on, man? Thanks for popping by tonight. Like the cool little logo head looking thing there. That's nice. Wow. Okay, so sounds like the audio crackle is completely gone. So I think it is something to do with Boom's connection. If anybody wants to confirm in the chat here. Gamer Alien says DC versus ASMR. I don't know what you mean by that. Is that a question? Tehillim29 says, still waiting for my LCS orders to arrive on my doorstep. Well, best wishes. Hopefully you get them as soon as humanly possible and that they bring you great joy. But he also says a lot of it is DC Comics. If you ask me, a majority of DC's publishing line hasn't been so hot. But as long as it brings you joy, my friend, that's all that matters. Let's see. Aaron VO sipping on some Guinness here. Nothing wrong with a darker ale. I actually... Are you a fan of like Black and Milds with Guinnesses? I'm curious. Let's see. How we good? Because when you disconnected, it seems like
okay. Now I just gotta hear you now.
Huh? Can you hear me now? Well, I'll keep talking. Gamer Alien says DC Universe versus Undertale. Again, I don't know if that's a question or what we're trying to get out of this here.
Okay.
Can you hear
me? Is that better? Yeah,
much.
I can hear you.
Dude, yeah. Well, as soon as you popped off, all that audio crackle went away. So I think it has to do with your connection.
Okay, well, it should be better now then.
You sound glorious, my friend. Okay, thank freaking God. Because that audio crackle, man, it is the bane of my existence. Mark McKeever says, wow, those prints are awesome. I thought it was the hardcover of the mini, but that was nice. Thanks for showing those.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, they were quite common back in '96. I think they probably published 50,000 of those prints. They were very common back in the mid '90s, so you could probably still acquire them at comic shops. I can't find a price on them anywhere, but yeah, it's cool. When you've been collecting as long as I have, there's a lot of stuff I have acquired that they're not even in price guides because people just forget about them. By the way, I should say this. Always ask your local comic retailer because a lot of comic shops, inside the comic shops, they don't have room for posters. So a lot of times retailers have extra posters that they just give away. And my retailer just gave me this for Donny Cates' latest one. Crossover.
That's nifty.
Yeah. So, I mean, I always ask my retailer if he's got extra posters every week, and he usually gives them to me because my retailer already has all his walls filled with posters, and even his windows are all full because he's actually paid for prints to be actually painted on his windows. And so yeah, I got this, and I got the Punchline one too, and I think I got the very first Punchline. And people forget that posters can sometimes be worth in the long term or a good long term investment too. I still have the original advertisement for Crisis on Infinite Earths with Superman holding the dead Supergirl, which is kind of cool. So
nice. That's super dope. Uh, that's awesome. I've gotten a couple Doomsday Clock posters out of that. Not the ones behind me. The ones behind me were actually from the first really big New York Comic Con panel regarding Doomsday Clock when they released that ash can revealing Rorschach, and which I think the ash can is. Oops, I'm pointing in the wrong direction. The ash can I actually have framed in there with the two posters.
Yeah,
so that's pretty fun. Paul Baker says, shit has been shot. Well, that's the only thing you can really do with shit.
you step on it.
That's true, but that's far less pleasant. We're going to try to keep it a pleasant sort of relationship with our shit, and it must be shot. Taylor Pector says, Jack Herbert is great. He's only done some fill-in recently, and they were really good.
Yeah, Jack Herbert. I think he's referring to the Wonder Woman artist on this Wonder Woman annual number 4. I mean, the art is just absolutely, gorgeous. The story wasn't bad either, but it was Steve Orlando's last issue, and boy, it's really good. And you can tell because I think he had a lot of time to do it, because you can always tell because the backgrounds, when they spend time and they draw, they take the time to draw insignificant little things in the background. Then they've had time. Even the palm trees and the lines on the palm trees and the background, and holy moly, just really good. Look at that sequence there in that one page alone, with Wonder Woman being repeatedly attacked. Like just the layout and the design. This is really, really good. He should be on a different title, because he's a better artist than he's certainly a better artist than what I've written in most of the DC main line, to be honest.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Yeah. Speaking of Wonder Woman, I've actually been considering picking up the Mariko Tamaki stuff and getting into that, because I've been dropping DC books like they're, well, I don't know. I can't think of things that are traditionally dropped, but just know DC books have been getting dropped. So, and I've heard good things about Tamaki so far.
Yeah. It's good. It's an easy jumping on point. I think it starts at issue 759, and it's Wonder Woman and Maxwell Lord. All you really need to know is Maxwell Lord was the villain that at one time in a different timeline she snapped his neck. And right now, just to remind people in the DC universe that all the heroes remember all the past timelines. That was actually established in Lois Lane issue 10, which nobody read. But in actual fact, Lois Lane did an article for the Daily Planet revealing to the world that a lot of people that you thought were mentally ill, in fact, aren't mentally ill, because what they're remembering is past lives from another multiverse, from another universe. And so that's why Wonder Woman, Superman, Young Justice characters, all continuity glitches are as a result of people remembering past lives on different Earths. And so the question now, all you got to know for Wonder Woman and Maxwell Lord is that they probably both remember that in another timeline, Wonder Woman snapped his neck, and he's a little bit leery about, he's probably going to want some revenge. I'm guessing. I don't know. But that's all you need to know. So and the art's fantastic. At least I like Janen's art. And I think I think that's the one thing that people remember from Heroes in Crisis. Even if you hated Heroes in Crisis, you probably liked the art.
Heroes in Crisis was Clay Mann.
That's right. Oh, and Lee Weeks too. So Janin was Tom King's Batman. He did a lot of Tom King Batman and Grayson.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I stand corrected. Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. That's something that sounds like it's worth looking into. Comic Breakdown asks, are you guys following the Shazam line? By the Shazam line, do you mean comics? And by comics, there's only one? So are you asking me if I'm reading Shazam? If so, I'm buying it, but I am admittedly mega behind. Like, I don't think I've even finished what Jeff Johns had written up to. I know Jeff Loveness is on the book until it finishes its run, but I did really like it for what I had read. I will say my one big criticism in that book, though, was that they kept soliciting Dale Eaglesham, and we got like a couple pages of Dale Eaglesham, maybe like every 2 or 3 issues, which it pissed me off immensely, because when they announced Jeff Johns and Dale Eaglesham on a fucking book, especially a Shazam book, I was giddy. I was so giddy about it. And I am very frustrated with DC doing this thing where they solicit great artists and they're only there for like an issue and maybe some change. It bothers me, but it was a good book as far as I had read up to. Boom. Have you been keeping up with Shazam?
I have, and I've been enjoying it. I like the. I'm not going to ruin. I'm not going to. I won't. I promise I don't spoil much for you, Dark Knight. But it's what I really like. I like the chain of events once Billy Batson's father showed up on the scene, and how that, and then combine that with. I don't like Superboy Prime, but I have to admit that introducing Superboy Prime into that. Like Superboy Prime is known as a character that when he first entered the scene in Infinite Crisis, this guy was lipping off limbs and decapitating people, and to find him used by Jeff Johns in a Shazam title, which people associate more with. I mean, it's largely almost like it's a comic book. It's more for kids, really. Like, it's because it deals with children. And I thought, boy, oh boy, you're introducing Superboy Prime with these children. Young teenage characters. I thought, boy, oh boy, that's I think a dangerous combination, or a curious character to use, one that was so brutally violent, to use them in a Shazam. But the jury's still out, because Superboy Prime, that angle hasn't been fully explored yet. But I really like the angle with Billy Batson's dad and Mr. Mind, and there's a lot of intricate plot weaving that's going on. It's actually very well done. Jude Loveness is a highly underrated writer. He wrote an indie comic for Boom Studios called Judas, which is a reinterpretation of the relationship between Judas Iscariot, the apostle who betrayed Christ, and retelling that story after the crucifixion and how he obtains redemption. Fantastic. One of the best indie comics I've ever read. And Judeness also just wrote the latest issue of Justice League, where they come across a planet of just the Black Mercy plant. And the Black Mercy plant is that famous Alan Moore story. The plant Black Mercy fulfills your heart's desire, but it sucks up your life energy as you're trapped in your mind, experiencing your heart's desire. And so he's really firing on all cylinders, Jude Loveness, right now. He's another example of, even though we've lost some creative talent at DC, he's definitely one that I hope they keep.
Awesome. Yeah. Actually, Joey, who will hopefully pop on at some point soon, he was talking to me a little bit more about this small Justice League arc, which will inevitably get trumped by Dark Knight's death metal crossovers. It sounds interesting, and to be frank, like I just been so lackadaisical about reading Justice League, but it does get me interested, because the idea sounds really, really great. There we go. Get our booze in the shot. By the way, if anybody's a bourbon drinker, Four Roses single barrel, delightful. Delightful. You can pick it up for like just over maybe $40. It's such a good, relatively budget bourbon. It's a great drink, and it's really, really good if you know how to make a good old fashioned. And now I know an old fashioned is simple to make, but it has to be a good old fashioned. And I'll say that as somebody who is drinking plenty of shit old fashions. My alcohol advice. Well, the alcohol advice segment for the moment over. But Comic Breakdown, are you reading? I assume you're reading Shazam. How do you feel about it? Everybody else watching, is anybody else reading this book, enjoying it, not enjoying it? What are your thoughts? Paul Baker says, I wish DC would slow down the double shipping so that good artists could have longer runs on each of the books without breaks. I agree with your sentiment, but I mean, as far as I know, a grand, overwhelming majority of DC's books have gone back to monthly shipping. The only books I know still doing double ship are Batman, Detective, and I think after Detective 1027, I think Detective is going to go back to monthly, as far as I understand. What else is coming out bi-weekly still? I know Superman and Action aren't anymore.
I actually thought Wonder Woman, isn't Wonder Woman every 2 weeks still? Maybe I'm just imagining things, or maybe because maybe the pandemic threw off my stuff. To be honest with you, my retailer is always a week behind on my comics, because he's not shipping through Diamond anymore, and so I always get my comics at different rates, so it's screwing up my mind. Combine that with the alcohol, and I'm completely lost.
That's fair.
I thought Wonder Woman. I could have sworn we got the first two Marika Tamaki's Wonder Woman 2 weeks apart, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Incidentally, I want to say something. Mark Wade on Word Balloon podcast, he said that Marvel actually has, as of last Wednesday, Marvel still has 129 comic books, the PDFs for completed 129 Marvel comic books that they haven't printed yet, that haven't gone to press, and some of them may never go to press because of the pandemic. But that's how far ahead they are. 129 comics. Now, granted, they put out when they're at the top of the game, Marvel's putting out 80 to 90 comic books a month. But that just goes to show you the impact that COVID had on Marvel production. They kept going, and they have all that stuff in the bag. And Mark Waid even said that he's got a couple of issues. He's got 2 issues of Doctor Strange in the bag that will never see print, he says. He doesn't think. Doctor Strange, Surgeon Supreme. But in any event, I thought that was interesting.
That is wild. I wonder, and the crazy thing is because they have that back catalog, I wonder if any of those things will get released like post-mortem, like in a trade or whatever. That would be interesting to see. But yeah, let's see. I will go back up and try to catch up, but Taylor does clarify for us. Thank you, Taylor. Batman, Flash, and Wonder Woman are the only bi-weekly books standing.
Sure.
Interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And like I said,
I'm not going crazy.
I think Detective still is up until 10/27 though. I could be wrong. Also, can I quick little rant, quick little drunky boy rant. I don't like that DC keeps soliciting Detective 10/27 as Batman's 1000th appearance, because it's not, right? Clearly Batman has appeared likely at least tens of thousands of times. Like, this isn't his 1000th appearance just because you want to put a big crisp whole number like in there. DC, stop playing. Like, you know what I'm saying? I bet you it's probably like Batman's like 32nd 1851st appearance.
Well, I think they gotta parenthesize that and say in Detective Comics. It's the 1000th appearance in Detective Comics, right?
Yeah, but isn't that technically not true? Because
well, if you count annuals, I suppose it's not true if you count Detective Comics annuals. But if you just think of Detective Comics, like,
well, even if you just think of Detective Comics, though, even then, like, and Taylor, I know Taylor Pector will correct me if I'm wrong because he's a big Greg Rucka Batwoman fan. Wasn't Batwoman Elegy in Detective Comics, and Batman only appeared in like one of those issues? So Batman hasn't been in every issue of Detective Comics.
Batwoman was a backup feature in Detective Comics.
Elegy? Batwoman Elegy I thought it was the whole issue.
Was it the whole issue? Was she the only one that was in that? You know, maybe you're right. I have those issues and I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure those were full
I guess
issues.
maybe Taylor can tell us. I
Hey,
don't
Taylor,
know.
I know Taylor will correct me because he is an ardent, not an ardent, an
Actually,
adamant fan of
I think
Batwoman.
you're right because that was after the 52 when Batman was gone for a year. Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, that whole year when they were gone. I think that's when Batwoman took over Detective Comics.
Yeah, I think
you're
so
right.
too.
Yeah,
I believe so. And just as a heads up for all the wonderful people joining us in the chat, we are starting to kind of slow down. I will have to kind of skip some occasionally. If you do want to guarantee, and I know I sound like a fucking shill, if you do want to guarantee your comment getting read, click the Stream Elements tip link below. Literally as low as $1, you can make pretty much the longest comment, question, statement you want to make on there. And again, you don't have to. I'm going to try to read as much as I can, but we are falling behind, and I don't want to get to the point where I'm like 20 minutes behind on these comments. So just throwing that out there. Let's see. Where are we? Okay. Mark McKeever says, damn, I dropped Odyssey too early. Those artists look talented. Bro, I'm with you. I dropped Odyssey. Frankly, I think I held on to Odyssey longer than it deserved, but I did drop it before this newer arc. Williamson was just really, sucking ass on that book. Yeah. You could tell that Williamson, like the minute he got offered Batman and Superman, which I also don't think is really a good book, he just stopped paying attention to Odyssey, and he even admits it. I just listened to it. Might have been either a Word Balloon podcast or Williamson on Comic Pop, and he had mentioned how like he had actually like really started. And this isn't in his own words, but he was alluding to the fact that he was pretty negligent with what he had done in Justice League Odyssey. So I don't know. But boom, did it like when Dan Abnett first hopped onto that run, like did it pick up a lot, or did it feel like he was still cleaning up a lot of Williamson's mess?
You hit the nail on the head. One thing I I mean, I love Justice League Odyssey, but it started off with a lot of promise. And it's funny that you say Joshua Williamson admits that. I wish Joshua Williamson would admit he writes a shitty Flash, is what I wish he would. Because in actual fact, his Justice League Odyssey, I'll actually defend him. Because when Justice League Odyssey first came out, I think there was a lot of DC, between all the Justice League titles, there was a lot. You could tell there wasn't. I just assumed there wasn't a lot of communication between Williamson and Snyder, and even Tinian, who was on Justice League Dark. But so I thought Williamson had lost his way, and they didn't know what they wanted to do with Darkseid, because Darkseid was in the pages of Wonder Woman. He died, then he was born again, and then he was born in that Ghost Quadrant, which is where the Justice League Odyssey takes place. So it started off okay, and then after 3 issues, it began to contradict itself and its own continuity screwed up, and it never made a lot of sense. Then when Dan Abnett came along, Dan Abnett, absolutely, you could tell he was trying to fix the continuity to make it mesh with Scott Snyder's Justice League. Then what happened, of course, over the course of the next 2 years, Scott Snyder eventually hits Justice League 39, which of course the bad guys lose. The bad guys win. Meanwhile, Dan Abnett, he did start to improve Justice League Odyssey. And what was brilliant about what Dan Abnett did is that he actually made the original core members the bad guys. Like Cyborg becomes a product of Darkseid. So same with Starfire. The whole team was redone, and we had basically a new team with Orion, Blackfire. I mean, we had that Red Lantern Cat. We had a completely new team, and they were the good guys, and the bad guys were taken over and controlled by Darkseid. That made it awesome. And then we got a new character, Epoch, who's fighting Darkseid, and it was just amazing. And Darkseid had this incredibly. It was actually a brilliantly laid out plan. Sorry, I don't want to babble on and on about it, but it really has come together now. And it's at issue 24. I'm not sure. Okay, we know it's been canceled, but I think its last issue's in December. I think November or December. Anyways, it's just when it's starting to hit its stride, it's canceled. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to me. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's just when it starts to get really good, they canceled it.
Yeah, fair enough. It's rough, man. It seems like a lot of great. Like I had just caught up with Suicide Squad like a week ago, and it's like next thing we know, Suicide Squad like cut. I'm like, well, fuck. Okay, thanks DC. And I do see Jace. I see Jace in the pod in the comments down below, dude. If you want to hop up in this conversation, you let me know. I'll shoot you the link in DM. You can join me and Boom for some drinks and some chats if you feel like it, brother. No. I don't know, dude. I'm getting drunk. I don't have words. Words aren't a thing, but like, don't feel pressured. Antuhar says, Will Conrad kind of reminds me a lot of Mike Deodato in a good way. I haven't seen a lot of Conrad, but Boom, do you agree with Ant's sentiment here? And does everybody in the chat feel something similar?
Yeah, Will Conrad is, I think he's just want to, yeah, that's the artist. You could, yeah, I could agree with that. Mike Deodato, there's definitely some similarities in art. Like with his style.
Yeah, dude, I saw like that wide shot panel of Darkseid there online, and I was like, shit. Of course it gets good after I drop the book, because that looks stunning.
I mean, look at that scene there with Darkseid, like when he's even when he's defeated and he looks awesome. He looks cool even when he's getting his ass kicked.
Can I say a thing that I love about super like action-packed comics? When figures break the panel borders, I'm sorry, man, that gets me all hot and bothered. I love that stuff. I think it really, really adds to like the kinetics and the dynamicism of the page when it's done well. Like, seems like Will Conrad's super good at that. Dexter Soy is really, really good at that. I don't know. Is it just me, or is that just like is it just a weird quirk, or how do you feel about that when like dynamic figures kind of break the page boundaries?
Oh, I love it. I love it. In fact, it's funny you should say that, because Todd McFarlane had an interview with, he had a discussion with, man, who was he talking to? It was just a couple, it was actually last week. anyways, it's unimportant. Todd McFarlane was talking about when he first worked for Marvel, there was a miscommunication with Jim Shooter, and nobody. I'm paraphrasing. He said basically, people didn't stand up to Jim Shooter, or as it turned out, he discovered that it's not that they didn't stand up to Jim Shooter. It's just that they misunderstood what Jim Shooter meant when he gave him instructions. Jim Shooter would say things that he expected panels to be done a certain way, but it wasn't he wasn't trying to be dictatorial, but he was misunderstood. And Todd McFarlane remembers being a up and coming artist at Marvel. And he was told by his editor, look, Jim's going to come in. Just don't confront him. Don't ask your questions. Just talk to me about it. And of course, Todd McFarlane being who he is, right. Said, before Jim Shooter leaves the room, he says, oh, by the way, I was told that I couldn't do this, but why can't I do this? And he talked about drawing webbing, outside the panel. And he was showing it. And because that was what made Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man so famous. One of the things he did.
Wait, can we just the way you said that? You said Todd McFarlane's McSpider-Man.
See, I'm drunk. Anyways, he's talking about the 3D effect that he's creating by breaking the panel, and you can enhance a 3D effect by breaking the panel. Yeah. And that's what he was talking about doing. And it made a huge difference in the way his Spider-Man ran, the attention that his Spider-Man comic book got.
Dude, listen, Todd McFarlane's McSpider-Man is absolutely stunning. So
I couldn't even say that twice if I wanted to.
You should put that on a shirt. I love that. I love the random. There's a part of me that's like, I wish I could just comb through all 55 of these episodes we've done so far and find the funniest shit we've ever said and just throw it on a shirt or something. I don't know. I got to start keeping track of these. Gamer Alien says, I think he's asking, DC Universe versus Fallout Universe. To be 100% frank with you, I'm not really a big fan of these like blank versus blank things when it comes to like properties, comic book characters. I just don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, all I care about is a good story. And to be 100% frank with you, buddy, I don't know shit about Fallout. I'm not a video game guy. I don't let myself be a video game guy because, fun fact, when I really like a video game, I will 100% neglect all of my responsibilities and just binge the video game, which is 100% why I only let myself buy one video game a year. And 9 times out of 10, it's on like my Christmas break from school. Because I also work full time, but it's the only time I can manage playing anything. So I'm not super equipped to answer this question. I know, Boone, you're not much of a gamer, but
no, but I think Gamer Alien has stumbled. I mean, his question is a very, I think it's a very telling one because it's very, very interesting that AT&T is all about focusing on gaming and trying to get comic books probably more digital and taking advantage more of the digital market. And it's actually interesting that probably a good portion of the comic book marketplace consists of older white males like myself that are keeping it artificially alive. And at the same time, I'm not much of a gamer myself. And yet something like Fallout, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I never, ever heard of Injustice before until the comic came out. Huh. I mean, I knew it was a game, but when the comic book came out, I never picked up the first issue of Injustice. It was a video game comic. Why would I do that? Well, that was the biggest mistake I made because Injustice, I admit, having read it now, and I read it like 5 years ago, started reading it, but I admit Injustice is arguably one of the best series in the last decade for DC Comics, one of the best long-standing series, and it originated as a video game. So I think it's very telling that, the fact that I think it's important that it probably would serve me well if I did get more into video games, because I think that interplay between video games and comic books, I think that's key to the future survival of comics, to be blunt.
Yeah, no, I can get that sentiment. The writer part of me wants to say, no, I hope that's not the case. But to be fair, Injustice was fantastic. It was a great series. Tom Taylor very clearly was not interested in just making it easy for the video game to play with. He was just like, this is the world the video game wants. Let me do the best I can within that space. And he made one of the best selling DC comics of the last decade. Like is between digital sales, physical sales, trades, it is done phenomenally well. So also, I mean, we've said this multiple times on the show. In Tom Taylor, we trust, right? Like, I don't think any of us would disagree on that. So, yeah, I mean, Injustice is a great book, and you know, I'm not against doing like more video game projects as long as you put the right writer in there to make it interesting. Like, I was reading the Batman Arkham Knight comic that bridges the gap between Arkham City and Arkham Knight the games, and it was written by Peter Tomasi, and at the time, an up-and-coming Victor Bogdanovic, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. So I'm not totally against it, but there's definitely that kind of pretentious writer brain in me that's like, ooh, the video games for the Neanderthals. You know, not exactly like that, but you know what I'm saying. And I also,
sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, my brother. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was just going to ask: has Peter Tomasi left DC? He's at Marvel now, isn't he, or is he still writing for DC?
No, it's
isn't he? Isn't he writing Isn't he doing some Spider-Man or a Marvel project?
You're thinking of Gleason.
Oh, Gleason. Okay, that's right. Okay, that's what
Gleason has been doing. Some internals on Spider-Man, a couple covers. Tomasi is writing Detective Comics right now.
Bill, okay,
and hopefully more. If DC decides to fucking pull their head out of their asses and just let Peter Tomasi do what Peter Tomasi wants to fucking do, right? Let's establish that, because it's very clear that they are pigeonholing him to abide by other people's big strategies. But like when you let Peter Tomasi do something, it's usually pretty damn good. So let's just let Peter Tomasi do stuff, okay? Okay, thanks, DC Comics. I also do want to say, if everybody could do us a big solid, make sure you leave a like on this video. And also, if you would, share it on one of your social medias. Let's get more people into this conversation, more voices, more people to discuss comics. Just let's get this thing rolling. You know, I love chatting with you guys, and I want to make sure we open up this conversation to more and more people. Let's see. Taylor Pector asks about 30 minutes ago. So I from this point on, I promise I do need to start kind of skipping some of these so we can catch up. What did you read this week? What was your favorite book? To be 100% honest with you, Taylor, I haven't read anything this week. I'm super stoked for Thor 6. I've had a lot of people talk to me about it. I have given glowing reviews to all of Donny Cates' Thor runs so far. And mind you, I was not a massive like Donny Cates stan. Like, I've read his Venom. I always thought it was good, not the phenomenon people made it out to be. His Thor run so far is something special. So from what I've heard from a lot of people whose opinions I respect, I'm super stoked to get into Thor 6. To be honest with you, pending an announcement that I'm about to make, I've been working on a project myself. So I've been reading and rereading my own script as things have been going through, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. And you guys are going to be the first to hear about it, which is super great, as a sort of reward and a thank you for coming to these live streams and being a big part of the conversation. Let's see. And again, I apologize, guys. I do have to kind of start skipping a couple of these to catch up. So again, if you do want to guarantee your thing, Stream Elements tip link below. As low as $1 will guarantee your thing gets read. All that stuff goes back to the channel. Let's see. Some Okie Dude says, "Hey guys, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Glad you popped in."
Okie.
Let's see. Second Street Marvel, regarding your poster comment, says, "Yes, my LCS hooks me up with posters aplenty. I have seen them on your wall, Second Street or Trinity, whatever you prefer to be called. But yeah, that's awesome, man. I definitely try to get my LCS to do it. I was actually really bummed, right? So let me go up on a little sad boy story for a minute. I don't know if any of your local comic book stores have done this, but there's a program through DC where there's this frame with lighting inside of it, and DC gives them like this nice thick promo image to put in the frame, so it's like well lit and it's really cool. And they had gotten a Watchmen one, and everybody knows I fucking love Watchmen. I got it tattooed on my skin, and I was like, okay. Like when you rotate to the next one, can I please have the Watchmen poster? And I come in to my LCS like about a week ago, and I see it shifted to the 3 Jokers, right? So I'm like, oh, so you took it down. Can I have it? He's like, I gave it to somebody else. And I was like, I was like, dude, it's like, we talked about it. I reserved it. He's like, did we? I was like, yes. So I was definitely a sad boy for a little bit because it is a cool, like, just very iconic, eye popping Watchmen poster, and it. Yeah, I'd love to put that back up on the wall, but I am going to try to prod him for that Three Jokers one, especially with how great that book looks. So it's exciting. Let's see. Go down. JT Gamer, welcome, buddy. He says, you like manga? To be honest with you, before I ever read comics, I was like a manga guy. And by manga guy, I mean I was the guy that real manga people hate because all I read were mainstream manga. So as a kid growing up, I liked Naruto, I liked Bleach, I liked Dragon Ball, Soul Eater, and I really enjoyed it. Maybe you could technically call that one of my gateways to comics, although I don't think it really favored me into comics. It didn't shepherd me into going into comics. But yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I think manga is great. Clearly, there is a reason why manga exponentially outsells Western comics. And I am obviously pretty beholden to a lot of those characters because I grew up with a lot of them. But I don't really read a lot of it now, unfortunately. It's because of time and everything, school, work, making my own comic book. So I do like it, but I haven't spent a lot of time recently. So if anybody has any manga recommendations that I can kind of throw on the reading pile, go ahead. I'd be glad to take them. Boom. What about you? What's your relationship with manga as a good Canadian boy?
I've never had a relationship with manga. Straight up, it's one of those things where the nicest, it's like my mom always said, if you can't say anything nice about something, keep your mouth shut. So that's probably what I should do. I've always hated the art. I can't stand the art. I can't stand the fact that the books are backwards. You got to read them from one end to the other. Like, it's different. It's annoying. Although so I don't understand the appeal of manga. Never have. I think the art's atrocious. Honest to God, it's the worst style of art. I can't get into the art. I hate the art. I've never looked at a manga, and I think that I don't like the manga influence in comic books because I don't like the art. I've always hated the art. And there's multiple artists that I see that have a manga influence to them, and it's one of those things that it's obviously subjective, but I've always had a visceral dislike of manga. However, let me just say this, and is that it's I acknowledge I possess enough self-awareness to know that I'm a fool for saying that, and that I know there's a lot of great stories out there and I'll say this one thing that I think. One of the reasons why manga, I think, is so much more popular and successful than comic books, especially in Europe and in Japan, is that they have complete stories.
Yeah.
When you buy it, you have a story, and everything has a beginning, middle, and an end. And even comic book trade paperbacks don't have endings. They're just story arcs. They're not actual stories. And manga, you get a complete story. You get better characterization. What you don't get is good art. And you don't get a lot of expression, and I think you get a little bit too. I think there's too much gender neutrality, to be honest. But I mean, that's just there's too much. Some of it's just off. The way they portray sexuality is just a little bit disturbing sometimes.
So let me ask you a question, because I feel like there's a couple artists that we both talked about that we're both fond of that have very clear manga influence. For example, Jorge Jimenez. Absolutely massive manga influence. He's talked about it publicly multiple times. I think you look at his character designs and it's very clear. And yet, obviously, he has very many Western comic book influences. And I mean, I don't think you can deny that, man.
Oh, I can't deny that, but I would tell you that the best. I'm picturing his art in my mind, and I can see the manga influence. Yeah, and then when I picture his best art in my mind, it's minimized. His best art is when he minimizes his manga influence. I think that the slantedness on the eyes and the bigness in the eyes and the form. If it's too manga, to me it takes away from it. I like the North American style of art, man. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to sound. I probably sounded racist there. I wasn't trying to sound that way. I just don't like the manga style.
I think you're generalizing a little bit, though.
I am generalizing. I have to generalize when I talk about art, because there's always influences from everything. Now, I will say this, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here. Look, I credit Jimenez for whatever for I'm slowly being I'm more appreciative. If I love an artist, he said, well, if he tells me he's got a bunch of manga influence in his art, well, great. But I can tell you that it's not straight manga. I mean, the original manga, I'm just not a big fan of. I remember back in the day buying Scooter Girl, Blue Monday, I think it was. I've got manga comics, or like manga comics, not so much the manga paperbacks. So, but it was just something that I couldn't really get into. Like Klugston Meyer was another artist, something Sarah Klugston or something. I forget her name. Anyways, but I'm just telling you my bias. That's all. But there's always an exception when it comes to art, right? You can always point to something and say, and I'll say to you, you're right. I was wrong about that. But the vast majority of the time, I just wasn't into manga. But,
No, you're fair. I mean, I get it. Everybody has their preferences. I'm curious though, if anybody has any bomb ass manga recommendations to give Boom to maybe try to convince him. If you had to give him one book to make him change his opinion, what would it be, and why? Let us know down below. I'm curious. Let's see.
I want to give one recommendation for a comic here. It's called Sleeping Beauties. This is funny. A quick note. Sleeping Beauties. It's by Stephen King and his son Owen King. Owen being the other son, not Joe Hill, who is running the Black Label series for the Black Label horror series for DC Comics. But Sleeping Beauties. It's funny. It's about this sleeping sickness that only affects women, and they get cobwebs all over themselves. And the horrific part of it is that when you try to wake the women up, they go insane and try to kill you. And I'm thinking to myself, when I first read it, I thought to myself, this isn't a horror. This is real life, isn't it? I try waking my wife up. That's what happens to me too. But anyways, it's only on issue 2, but it's I'm oversimplifying the plot for some cheap attempt at humor there, but it's a little bit more complex than that. But it's quite good. And in these pandemic times, a sleeping sickness like this only affecting one gender, it's kind of interesting. Hence the name Sleeping Beauties. So it's I would recommend people pick it up. It's by IDW.
Who's writing and drawing it?
The art by Allison Sampson. It's based on a novel by Stephen King and Owen King. It's adapted by Rio Ewers, but it's based on their novel.
I think I've had too much bourbon, because I know you definitely said Stephen King and Owen King. Yikes.
Yeah, I did say that.
My biggity bad. Let's see. Taylor Peck clarifies, Detective has been monthly since earlier this year. Really? How much earlier? Because I know I could be wrong, but I am 99.9% sure that when Tomasi and Brad Walker started this Two-Face arc, that it was still bi-monthly. I could be wrong, but I'm 99.9% sure, because I reviewed the beginning of this arc and I remember the second book coming real quick. Feel free to double check and confirm. And regarding our conversation on Detective and Batwoman Elegy, Taylor Pector says, yes, Elegy took place in Detective. Question was the backup.
Thank you, Taylor.
Appreciate it. The Comic Source from Forever Go says, sup, yo? What's up, brother? How you doing? Hopefully you'll pop in. I sent you the stream link on Twitter, I think it was Twitter. Yeah, it was Twitter. All right. Let's see. Samoki Dude says he doesn't know of Will Conrad, followed up by Aunt Duhar saying, nah, I agree. It's why I like Will Conrad. And Deodato does that sort of thing. His work on Action Comics when he drew the Superman Revenge Squad arc with Dan Jurgens. I wasn't reading comics back then, so maybe Boom can comment a little bit more on that.
I'm gonna have to, when he drew Superman Revenge Squad, I can't. I mean, that sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't remember the visual in my head on that. So I would have to. I love. I remember Dan Jurgens. He's written so much Superman. Good Lord. I remember when he used to write Superman when I got sick of him writing Superman, and then now I'm glad he's writing Superman again.
Fair. That's very fair. I don't know. I mean, I could always pretty much go for a little bit of Dan Jurgens. Let's see. We actually got a very generous tip from Aaron VO. Thank you, brother. And his comment is blankety blankety blank. Let's see. Da 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 da. Oh, right. We're doing the thing. Aaron VO says a t-shirt run of Let's Talk Comics isms would be brilliant. Just saying. You know what? I might just have to go through all the episodes and comb through the best quotes and throw a little shirt together or something like that. Because it seems Aaron VO also says it in a regular chat here live. I'd buy those shirts in a fucking second. Nothing will beat the one time you mentioned something to the extent of Boom loves the comic book titties, and instantly Boom says, "Oh, absolutely," and pulls a stack of comics with hyper large breasted covers out of nowhere.
It's magic.
Listen, I feel like this has to happen. I'm curious if I were to comb through all of Let's Talk Comics and make shirts based on some of the funniest things you remember from this thing from the show. Well, this is twofold. One, can anybody remember anything that would be worth putting on a shirt? And two, would you guys check them out? Because I feel like that would be really interesting. And if people want them, I would spend the time to make them for you. And on that, if you click the link in the description below or go to darkknightnation.com/shop, we actually have a couple cool Let's Talk Comics items. I think I just posted a really nice shirt with a Let's Talk Comics logo embroidered on the front. It's really high quality. A couple Let's Talk Comics stickers, a coffee mug, and other Dark Knight Nation related things. So if that piques your fancy, guys, feel free to go check that out. Represent the show. We'd super appreciate it. And if you do, tweet at us. And I'll put up our Twitter tags up here. Let's see. So that we can see you rocking your gear.
Yeah. I should say to Aaron Vo that I actually have it's funny. If I said I had a bondage collection, people would get the wrong idea. What I mean to say, I've got a bondage comic collection, and I actually think I have Key Collector app. A lot of us, and a lot of people in the chat, you guys might have the Key Collector app. It's very common, and they actually have a bondage section where it shows all the bondage comics, like where women are tied up, and the selection of comics that they have is atrocious. They just go through the golden age and silver age, and they have this, they don't know what real bondage comics is. In my mind, they have a very poor selection. I should do a video on my cover collection for Wonder Woman alone has a whole slew of really good ones. And I'm not talking, I want to be clear, I'm not talking pornography here. Okay, I'm not, I know that, I'm always kind of like the guy who's joking around about, I'm just saying Purian fanboy stuff. And everyone in the chat, you Dark Knight, you know what I mean when I say a Purian fanboy. We just like the attractive human form, give me a nice, good looking woman, why do you think, She-Hulk right now, I don't want She-Hulk to be immortal if she's going to be a butch dyke for 300 years. I don't want that. I want an attractive woman who is hot. I want the slender female type. I'm not going to apologize for it. And guess what? I don't know. A little thing called sales seems to increase when you draw attractive women. You give them PTSD and then you try to make them interesting. Suddenly no one buys their comic book anymore. Listen, it's just one of those things.
Drunker comic book words have never been said, folks. And on that, I will invite Jace to the table and ask him what he thinks about that. Welcome, my friend. Cheers to you.
Hey, Jace.
Oh, Jace, you're muted. I don't know what's up. You're
muted, Jace.
Let's see. Wow. Let's see. We can't hear you yet. Still can't hear you.
Should be able to. All right, hold on a second.
Oh, wait, we gotcha. You're coming in.
All right. I spent 2 hours today messing with my sound setup, trying to get my studio kind of cleaned up. So I used to have a second laptop here, and I had a hybrid model, and I tried to get away from that. So, and I discovered while I was doing that all this time, whenever I've been coming on your show, I've been thinking I've been speaking into my good mic, and I've been using the mic that's part of my webcam. So I probably sound a lot better on that now than I have on the past ones.
You actually sound really good, and I low key kind of wondered what was going on because I've obviously listened to your podcast, and the podcast sounds great.
Yeah,
and then
that's why.
And I'm like, I wonder if it's just a weird like
Yeah.
AV setting. I don't know, but
Yeah,
do you have any?
it's just a cheap mic on the webcam. It picks up all the ambient sound as opposed.
I'll be honest, Chase. If I'm honest, the truth is I never heard a word you said in all that previous broadcast. I was reading your lips. I was reading your lips the entire time. I can read lips when I'm drunk. I was reading your lips.
All right, that's fair. That's fair.
If and only if he's drunk. So there are two questions that I have for you, Jason, now that you popped on. One of which, what are you drinking tonight?
You know what? I'm gonna have a little bourbon later, but for now, I'm just drinking some sparkling water.
Did you get my plug for my Four Roses single barrel?
I did. I'm on call. I'm on call for a couple more hours. So we'll see how that goes. It's been quiet, knock on wood. So, but I kind of agree with Boom, especially about She-Hulk. Like, when Jason Aaron Avengers book came out, and I saw the way She-Hulk looked, I'm like, nope, don't try that. Like, I wasn't reading Avengers anyway, but I thought, maybe now's a good time to jump on. And I saw the way She-Hulk looked, and I'm like, that's not She-Hulk. So
yeah.
So I could see your point, but I also kind of see the other part of it. Like, I want good characterization too. And when it comes down to it, like, what would I choose between, having her look more feminine and having a good story? Obviously, you want both. But if I have to choose between a good story and her looking feminine, I probably have to choose a good story because I did enjoy Charles Soule's run of She-Hulk, and that's the Javier Peluda art that I don't care for. But I still enjoyed it, and I still read whatever it was, all 12 or 14 issues.
Yeah,
So,
Can I ask you guys a question? Can I ask you guys a question about Wonder Woman? The Wonder Woman 1984 cover, that controversial cover. What did you guys think of it?
So I thought it was different. I was not planning on buying it, but I didn't think it was terrible. Like, it's good art, but to me, it's not Wonder Woman. So I thought, okay, this is good art. It's not my thing. I'm not going to buy it, but it's fine. I didn't have a problem with it. Then I saw all of a certain group coming out and, wanting to burn this artist at the stake. And, I'm sure they did no research whatsoever. They didn't go and look at any of her other art. That's her art style, and she's not starving. She's doing very well for herself in that art style. But because all those guys complained about it so much and because they're all dirtbags, I said, you know what? I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy this cover now. Woo-hoo! Just because you guys are such jerks. Here we are talking about comics needs more new readers and an infusion of new, fans. Well, this is how you do it. You bring in an artist from, with a different style who clearly has a following, and you put her art on, the cover of a Wonder Woman book, and they go and buy it, and maybe they read it, and maybe now they're converted, and maybe now they're reading Wonder Woman. Yeah. So that's the thing that these people aren't understanding. I mean, these guys all the time, I hear them say, yeah, I haven't bought a DC comic in 8 years because they don't listen to me. Why should they? You haven't bought a DC comic in 8 years. Why should they be listening to what you're saying? What are you complaining about? Shut the hell up. Go live in your troll closet. I don't want to hear from you.
Sing it, brother.
You weren't going to buy this cover anyway. It wasn't for you. It was never for you. So shut up. And did you see the garbage? Like, let me fix this cover for you. The artwork they did, they went and changed it. Oh my God, there was one. She had so many muscles, even her muscles had muscles. If somebody were that heavily muscled, they literally would not be able to move. They wouldn't.
I have comments in twofold. First of all, I wasn't going to pour anything else, but after that, I think I need to. Secondly, regarding the cover, it's first of all, I'll say this: it makes sense to try to capture a different audience. 1, 2, you always have the A cover, right? Like if a variant cover gets you butthurt, you always have the A cover, right? So why the fuck do you care? You're just starting problems to start problems. You're literally shoving the stick up your ass further and further just for the pleasure of it. Also, I don't like the cover. It's not my taste. I'll say that. I don't love that cover. That art style is not for me. But am I talking about it? Am I getting upset about it? No, because if I want to pick up Wonder Woman, I can always buy another cover. And even if I didn't, guess what? If the cover bothered me that bad, Surprise. Wait, I just
You know
want
what?
you to
So how do you feel about it, Boom? Like, you think that cover's gonna be? I mean, because hey, it did what DC needed to do, right? Because we're talking about it, people are talking about it. Maybe more people are gonna buy it. Will that cover have like any spec value?
I put it on. My. It was funny. I had a conversation with my retailer because I always go an hour earlier, and he was going through. He flipped his computer screen around and he was going through the FOC, and I remember like a couple of weeks ago, or whatever it was, and he showed me the cover. He goes, "Do you want that?" And I look at it and I thought, "Jesus, it's not my cup of tea." I said, "But yeah," I said, "Yeah, actually I do." I said, "Give me 2 of those." He goes, "What?" Because he knows I collect all Dynamite and I collect, I like the Perillo covers, the provocative breasts and ass, I mean, good stuff, right? But to me, it looks, I knew immediately that it would cause controversy, but it looks artsy. It actually looks different. It's eclectic. It's a different type of art. I love the hair. I mean, obviously she's, I don't even know if, I know they want to be realistic to different body types and stuff, and I respect that, but it has to do with the Wonder Woman movie. So you're supporting the movie, and I think it's unique. It might not be my cup of tea, but I right away I said I've got 2 of them on order. I think it's going to sell out.
Yeah,
and I think it's going to sell out because of the controversy.
Yeah, and when I saw it, I thought the same thing. This is good art, but it's not my style of art, and that's why I was gonna pass on it. And then I was like, just to stick it to these guys. But the other part of it is what they didn't understand is this. I don't think it's supposed to be Wonder Woman on the cover. It's supposed to be somebody who is, likes Wonder Woman and is paying homage to Wonder Woman. It's not supposed to be Wonder Woman. When has Wonder Woman ever worn jeans ever? Even when she was
perhaps in the 90s,
she had like slacks on. They weren't jeans.
What about in the 90s though, when she had that cool black leather jacket and assumedly black jeans?
I love that look.
Those were leggings.
I don't
remember seeing the stitching. That's on this cover. You can see the stitching. It's denim.
I'm curious. Somebody please go ask Mike Diodato if they were leggings or super fucking tight jeans, because I can't help but think in the 90s, like super tight jeans were all the fucking rage, right? So like, I don't know. Maybe.
I'm pretty sure they were black tights. I spoke with Joey, Joe's Geek Show. He just finished reading Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman Artemis arc, because that was during the contest when Artemis defeated Wonder Woman and became the new Wonder Woman. And that was I'm pretty sure it's like skin tight, like it's just skin tight nylons. What it was, I don't think it was jeans for Wonder Woman that are. I personally loved the top. I thought she looked. I loved Mike Diodato's art. At that time, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean it's cool. It's cool art, but regarding the cover, man, it's just not my style. It's not my thing. But
as far as detective goes, to go back to that, you guys were talking about it right before I came on. So I know DC announced toward the end of last year that all their books were going to go monthly at some point this year, but then the pandemic hit and that got all thrown out of whack. And so, like, I went real quick before I jumped on. I went to DC.com and I looked at the release dates. The release dates show 2 issues every month through the end of this month. So, but I don't know, because I know we had some skip months. So I don't know if they're trying to catch up. But I feel like it's been coming out twice a month. But I remember hearing that it was supposed to go once a month.
Right.
So I don't actually know.
Like I was saying, and I know Taylor does. I saw Taylor's thing. He says that Detective has been monthly since earlier this year. But like, I'm still like, I still feel like Detective. I remember noting in my head that Detective was going to be bi-monthly at least up until Detective 1027. And even then, it's weird because DC, like their website, because of the virus, they're not soliciting very far out at all, which is odd.
I started with issue 1000, and I went all the way up to like 1012.
Dude, have you read?
Maybe
Detective?
I didn't go far enough.
Have you read the beginning of Tomasi's run from 994 to 999?
Oh yeah.
Oh, so good. It was so good. We actually no, wait a minute. We talked about it in our Batman stream. Why am I asking that?
Yeah. We did. Somebody was asking earlier about the best thing that we've read this week. I don't know. Did either of you guys get a chance to read Maestro #1 from Peter David?
No, I'm way behind.
No.
Boom. Oh.
Is it good?
Yeah, it was my book of the week. So like the last page is good, but the last panel, I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but I read it and I was immediately transported back to high school in the middle of the Peter David run when we first got the Professor Hulk. And you think about that Future Imperfect storyline and you think, how could he go from that Professor Hulk, which maybe was the most super heroic the Hulk has ever been because he had Banner's intellect and he was a little more even keeled, than he ever had been, to go from that to the Maestro. You wonder, like, and my thought was, okay, something's going to happen and it's going to, snap. Like, speaking of injustice, Superman realizes he killed Lois, right? And he kills the Joker, like, snap. So I thought it was going to be something like that. It's so much more subtle. And basically that first issue, I felt like it was David taking Bruce Banner or the Hulk and having him take the first step to becoming Maestro, just the first step. And it's kind of sad, and you can see the train wreck coming, and it's going to be this tragic story. But what I didn't expect was that I think I'm going to be rooting for him the whole time and thinking, no, don't make that choice. What are you doing? It's going to be a gradual thing. He's gradually going to lose what humanity he had left to become that evil despot that we know Maestro is. So if anybody watching hasn't seen it, or you guys or read it, you guys haven't read it, put it at the top of your stack. Really good. And I wasn't familiar with Herman Peralta. He did the art. It's almost like a cross between Dale Keown and Gary Frank. One followed the other on Hulk. So it's very reminiscent art-wise as well of that period. So it was really, really good.
I will take your glowing recommendation, man. I'll have to give that a look. Question: you said it came out when you were in high school?
So the Peter David run of Hulk, right. It was when when 377 came out, that real famous day glow green cover of the Hulk. That was like my junior year of high school. That was like
what year ish would that have been?
That would have been 90 or 91 that issue came out. Yeah, I know. You probably weren't even born yet.
No, that's like
But that was like, it was a real famous issue because that's the one that finally merged all the personalities and gave us the Professor Hulk. So
does it make you feel old that I wasn't even like a thing? Like I was.
No, I'm used. At this point, I'm used to feeling old, man.
Fair.
What was I? I was doing. What was I podcasting the other day? I was doing an episode, and I was talking about something that happened in 1980, and I went, "Oh my God, 1980 was 40 years ago." I was like, you know what? Let's say like 1989, so we can say 30 years ago. I can't remember what I was talking about, but yeah, I can't believe. Yeah, I don't want to head down that path.
To me, 2005 feels like forever ago. So I don't know. I have no chicken in this. I have nothing in this conversation. But let's see. Taylor Pector asks, fun thing about being old, real quick. When Boom came to New York Comic Con, it's so funny. My best friend is like 4 years older than me, and one of the things, and he'll notice, I always make fun of my buddy Edwin for being 4 years older than me, because when we became friends, I was considerably young. Like I was like 14. And the entire time I'm just shitting on Edwin being old. And then Rocky's like, what about me? And I was like, no. You're okay. Him, he's fucking old. Like the entire time. Like this was a consistent thing throughout the weekend, was it not? And I'm sure like when we went to bars, I'm sure it became exponentially like more accented as I got drunk.
Well, it's all good. That's what drinking's for. And well, I think we got a lot of it out of our system when we played beer pong in the basement of that pub whose name completely eludes me, but
I think it's called the something pig. Something. Fuck! I have a video of me being drunk, like yelling it in the streets. But the Pigs and Whistle. That's what it was. And our bartender was named Carl, and he was from Ireland.
God.
And because I am a considerably terrible Irish American, I'm 25% Irish. I was like, okay, at least tell me how to be a good drunk Irishman. How do I say cheers? Like what's the salutation for cheers? So I do remember that much. And Boom is a surprisingly phenomenal beer pong competitor. He's very good.
I got my own beer pong table. You can imagine my surprise when I go, I'm looking for the bathroom in this small pub, and I walk into this basement, and all of a sudden there's this beer pong table with an American flag image on it. And I thought, I've died and gone to heaven. I'm in New York City for the Comic-Con, and I'm going to take a piss, and I see a beer pong table with an American flag on it. It's like, I've arrived.
It was a time.
I don't think I hit well, I take that back. The only bars I went to were because they were having con parties that I was invited to. I didn't really hit up any like pubs on my own. Other times I've gone to New York, I've done that. And yeah, they've got a lot of great pubs there, but man, they're yeah. It's the same as San Diego. You go to those big cons and you get invited to, these parties, and the booze is free, and man, it makes it rough. Don't try not to schedule any interviews first thing in the morning. It's my best advice.
Yeah.
I remember it wasn't last year. I think it was 2018. DC had 2 press breakfasts, one on Thursday and one on Friday. I did not make the one on Friday. The one on Friday was on the DC yacht, and it was for Heroes in Crisis.
I remember that.
I've seen pictures where Mitch Gerrits and Clayman and Tom King were wearing the robes and they had the masks. Yeah, I had an invite to that, but I was at the Webtoon party the night before till the wee hours, and oh no.
I do remember that. That was the year I think I first got I had just started the YouTube channel, but I had first gotten press passes for that, and it was interesting. I didn't stay for very long because I had to go prep for an interview. I think at the time was with Rob Venditti. But yeah, dude, those events, first of all, those press events are fucking cool. Those are super cool. They did a press thing last year for like the DC Universe app, which was pretty interesting that we didn't end up going to, but I had gotten like an invite for it. But it seemed super cool. There was like a private thing with Snyder, a thing with like Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner. The only thing was I felt immensely guilty because I was there with like 3 other people and I only had a pass for myself. And I was like, well, I'm not leaving the boy high and dry.
Yeah, they usually, for their press events, they usually only let one person per outlet. And even that's going away now. Like, DC, they used to give away a lot of stuff during their panels at conventions. They don't do that anymore. And now with the purse tightening, which kind of ties into what Taylor's talking about here, yeah, you're not going to see those. Even last year at San Diego, they didn't do press events. They were going to do them. They announced them. Hey, we'll let you know. And then like a week before the convention, they said, nope, we're not going to do press events. Instead, we're going to do a breakfast for all the DC Universe subscribers. That's where we want to spend our money, our marketing money. I'm like, all right, whatever. Not like I don't have a ton of other stuff to do. So.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely feel that. And on that, since you bring it up, Taylor Pector asks, what are you guys' thoughts on Jim Lee's very corporate damage control interview with the Hollywood Reporter talking about layoffs? And I think it's very convenient that we just got Jace on, because I know Jace probably has a bit to say. Definitely have Jace start, and then Comic Boom. Well, I run to the loo, gentlemen.
Yeah, so I'm not going to get too in depth into it right now, only because we did a live stream that went pretty in depth. I also did a podcast with the site I'm affiliated with, LRM Online, for an LRM morning, which is one of the podcasts they do every day. And I went in depth there as well. But if you really want to know, like, my deep thoughts, my deep analysis on exactly what Jim Lee said, if you go to lrmonline.com and go to the Comic Source tab, I wrote an article where I just copied and pasted what Jim Lee said. And in red, right below his comments, I put, okay, here's what he said, and here's what he means. The name of the article is Jim Lee, What He Said and What He Didn't Say. Because you'll notice in the article, the person will ask a question. It'll be like a 2-part question. He completely ignores the first part and just answers the part that he wants to answer. So Jim Lee's a really smart guy. He went to Princeton. He's clearly mastered the art of corporate speak. And what's he going to say? I mean, these are the people that are employing him. I'm sure he makes, well into the 6 figures for a salary. So, what's he going to say? He's going to try to paint a rosy picture. And, Boom talked about it when we did the podcast. This could be a good thing. We've all talked about how, the comic industry has been broken. It's been a house of cards for a really long time. They've needed a big shakeup, a big change. And yeah, it's painful. There's people that are being let go that I know personally that I consider to be friends. And it's tough. At least they gave them the 90 days. Hopefully they'll land on their feet. Hopefully this can bring in new readers. I mean, if you, we just did a live stream and a podcast on the Comic Source last night, pretty kind of late, but it is out there. You can find it. We went through, Manny and I, the other guy that does the podcast, we went literally through the whole entire schedule for DC Fandom. We're going to be live streaming it this weekend. Hopefully these guys might jump on as well. But we noticed we're going through, and there are podcast or panels rather that are being hosted by people that are Brazilian. There are, you can see, there's one panel that's all about Asian creators, and the guy that's hosting it is part of like Golden something or other, Gold Group. I can't remember exactly, but clearly somebody from China or Japan who's a well-known name over there. So you can already see them trying to expand into international markets. So they at the end of the day, Warner Brothers, Warner Media, and in turn their parent company, they just want more money. They just want DC to produce more cash flow, because AT&T is $160 billion in debt. And that's just the bottom line. So we're going to see fallout from it. We're all going to have to get used to the kind of the new normal. Continuity is going to be less important. And, you're going to see kind of more generic stories. But hopefully it can lead to experimentation in a different way. And ultimately it can lead to some better movies, because that's the bottom line. That's where Warner Media wants to get. They look over at the MCU and they see billion-dollar movies. They're like, that's where we want to be. And if more generic stories and kind of, I don't even want to say more generic stories, but less continuity. So the creators on a particular book have more freedom to just tell the story they want to tell without worrying about what other people do. That could be a good thing. And it could lead to some better movies. I'm not sure how involving Zack Snyder and giving in to these Snyder bronies who are a toxic group kind of dovetails with that. I think that's a short-term money grab, with Warner Brothers saying, hey, Zack Snyder agreed that we don't have to pay for anything. Zack Snyder is editing the Snyder Cut on his own dime. What I'm not sure is if he's paying for all the added special effects all on his own. Obviously I'm not privy to the details of the agreement, but he's editing it at home by himself. He's doing all the heavy lifting. That's why it's taken so long to come out. And Warner Brothers are probably thinking, hey, we get to put out this movie that people are clamoring for without spending really any more money or minimal money on it. Yeah, why wouldn't we? But I do think it sets a bad precedent just because those guys were so toxic. But less continuity in the stories might get us some better DC movies, and they haven't all been terrible. I've liked some of them, but they aren't to the level of Marvel. I mean, as much as I'm a DC fan, I have to admit that. But as long as they keep Snyder away from the DC Extended Universe, and they let the creators just create, both in the comic stories and in the movies, you don't do like you did to David Ayer, where you bring in a movie trailer company to edit Suicide Squad. And it seems like they trust James Gunn. They clearly trust James Wan on Aquaman. So, hopefully this can lead to what we all want. And I don't know, did you guys hear the news today about Ben Affleck coming back as Batman in the Flash movie?
Yeah.
So,
with Michael Keaton as well. Michael Keaton will be Thomas Wayne. Ben Affleck will be Bruce Wayne. Yeah, I know. I think that's inspired. I hope that's right.
Yeah. So anyway, Taylor, go check out the article if you want a little more in-depth analysis. Because like I said, I literally reprint Jim Lee's answer and then say, here's what I think about what he just said and what he might actually mean. I'm kind of reading between the lines, but 40 years of comic book experience gives me a little bit.
I would definitely encourage everyone to read Jace's article. The other thing I want to add is just to take a different angle on the Jim Lee interview, and that is the fact that it's nice to see Jim Lee step up to the plate a little bit more. I predict, not that this is a brainwave of a prediction, but he bloody well he should start doing a little bit more interviews than he did when he had a co-publisher with Dan Didio. I think Jim Lee, I hope he feels a little bit less secure in his job and maybe has to step up to the plate in PR more with the people, because Jim Lee is a great guy. He's a great personality. He's a great artist, but he's got to talk more. He's got to have more of a connection with the fan base other than just drawing a sketch every 5 months and, or something for Heroes Initiative when there's a pandemic. And so I want to see Jim Lee talk and communicate more, because he's a good communicator. And as Jace pointed out, he is an educated person. He's good with the fans, but that's exactly why we need to hear more from him. The other thing I should say is that there's already rumors. Now they're just rumors, but I heard rumors that Marvel is talking about leaving Diamond. The Diamond distribution it's getting worse. You're hearing more and more stories about Diamond. They're low on staff. The shipping's getting worse. The packaging's getting worse. Marvel's already, rumor has it that Marvel's looking for different distribution system as well. I'm telling you, I have a sneaking suspicion DC, AT&T, DC/AT&T are going to look smarter and smarter the more we get into this pandemic. So I have a feeling that history is might be very kind on AT&T, and I think that at this point in time, I still feel the same way. I was speculating last week when we talked about it, but I think more and more I'm still giving AT&T the benefit of the doubt on this. Somebody had to rip the Band-Aid off. 65 years of a particular way of handling the comic book industry, something had to give, and AT&T comes along, and maybe they look like the corporate bad guys, but sometimes, if you need a bitch slap to get you on the right track, does it matter if it comes from a bad guy or a good guy? You still need the bitch slap. And that's what happened.
Comes directly from the devil herself, Pamela Leifert.
Yeah, that's an interesting associate.
Let me ask you, Boom, do you think that Marvel might go to the same two distributors? You think they might go with UCS and Lunar?
Well, I don't know. But at the same time, I also don't know what other distributors are available. Obviously, they do. I don't know enough information to answer that question. All I can tell you is this: my retailer, I've been waiting an extra 3 or 4 days for my shipping. He's been, they're a little bit behind on his shipping. He's actually getting his comic book cheaper through Universal, which is a toy distributor. He's being very creative with how he's doing it. So I'm getting my comic books, my physical copies, a little bit late, but my retailer is saving a little bit of money doing it. So he's not hurting. And he shows me the boxes, and they're better stored, like they're better shipped in when he gets them through Lunar and USC. So he's happy. He's not complaining.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the shipping problems are due to the pandemic. There's so much more shipping going on right now, just because there's people are stuck at home. Like I ordered some more drawer boxes. I got another third layer there.
Nice.
For another 1,000 books. And originally when I got the tracking, it was supposed to be here yesterday. And then all day yesterday, I was like, okay, we're supposed to be here. I checked the tracking. Yep, supposed to be here. 9:00 last night, I check again, and I'm like, now it had changed to today, it wasn't a big deal, but it just goes to show, man, those, and I'm not begrudging like FedEx or UPS or anybody who works for the U.S. Postal Service. They have a tough job right now. They're essential workers. They're putting themselves at risk. And especially here in Arizona, where it's like over 115 degrees every day, that's a tough job, man. So especially, I don't know, do you those drawer boxes, I don't know if either of you guys use them, but that I ordered 5. It's 30 pounds of cardboard. It's not light,
Is that each? Is that for all 5 or for each?
For all 5, yeah.
All 5, yeah. I've never used those. I was just kind of curious. Do you like the way they work well, those boxes?
Yeah, they work really well. I mean, I just got tired of, I've got so many books. I'm like around 26,000 now, and it's like when I had the old school long boxes, if I needed to get to a long box on the bottom because I had them all stacked just for space issues, it's a workout, I'm like sweating like crazy, moving. So now with the drawers, you just pull them out. So some of them you can see back behind me, there's black cloth that covers, I've got a whole row there that covers, and then I've got, what is this? Another 17 here. And then my desk that I sit at, it's a 6-foot piece of glass. It's 6 feet by 3.5 feet. Mm-hmm. It sits on 4 long boxes.
Oh shit! Do you find that those drawers, especially when you stack them, do they carry the weight well? Like, do you see a lot of like bowing or bending?
No, not really. So it's a cardboard shell, and then inside the cardboard shell, it has another piece of cardboard and it's heavy duty that reinforces, and then you have the actual long box itself that slides in there. So they're pretty sturdy. The only thing I worry about the space that I just showed you, it's on top of a stainless steel entertainment center. is where I have those, just because I didn't have anywhere else to stack them. But it's a stainless steel like coffee table, if you will. It's in the middle of the bottom of the entertainment center, but it has a piece of glass on the top of it, and then the boxes are stacked. So I'm just worried. I'm like, I don't know if that glass will take the weight as I fill that last layer of boxes up, but we'll see. If it breaks, it breaks. I'll put a piece of plywood down there or something.
Fair enough.
I mean, I try not to buy so many physical books, man, but pandemic, I'm on eBay. Hey, look, that's a good deal. Let me buy 500 books for, whatever, just because it's it's 50 cents a book. Sure. So bad.
Yeah. I've been looking into the shelving units. I'm glad the sliding things, because I'm glad you spoke on it, because I've been really, really cautious, because I was afraid that, the cardboard wouldn't be able to hold the weight well without damaging the single issues, or relying on like the single issues to physically support the kind of structure. So I'm glad to hear that. I might have to look into getting.
Yeah, when I first transitioned though, they're pricey, and the price has gone up since the pandemic started, because I think people are at home and they're like, oh, let me reorganize my comics, and so they're not cheap. When I first transitioned, I bought 35 of them. I think 35 of them. And it was between $300 and $400, like $360 something for that many. So it was an investment to swap them all over, and putting that many of them together all at once was not fun either. But then I just ordered these 5, and I noticed the price had gone up. It was like $86 for just 5 of them now. It was almost as much for the shipping as it was for the 5 boxes itself. So if you're going to get them, if you have a lot, like if anybody's listening and you're thinking about transitioning, get them all at once, because they sell them in packs of 5, and for every 5 you get, they lower the price by $1. So you may want to save up and make an investment. Just get a bunch of them at once. The shipping kills you though; it's so expensive. They used to have like local distributors where you could go and pick them up. I don't know if they do that anymore. Like I know Mile High was a distributor for them for a while. That would save you so much money if you could go and pick them up locally. But you have to look into that. Anyway, it's they don't pay me any money. I'm not like a paid sponsor or anything, but I just think that's a really good product. It's a collectiondrawer.com if you want to go and check them out. And BCW does some that are similar, but they're not as good. I wouldn't stack BCW boxes more than like 2 or 3 high. Whereas these, you could probably go 4 or 5 without any worry. They're a lot more sturdy.
Good to know. And regarding my answer to Taylor's question here, it does very much feel like corporate speak regarding how Jim Lee kind of handled damage control. It's interesting enough, right? Because one of the kind of more concrete pieces of information that it seemed like everybody had been talking about was Jim Lee losing the co-publisher position. And one of the things Jim Lee says in the article with the Hollywood Reporter was that he's still co-publisher of DC Comics. Now, a part of me wonders if that was always the consistent sort of a direction they were moving in, or if after the information released, maybe they gave Jim Lee the title back. Maybe it was one of those things where, behind closed doors, they'd taken it away, and maybe things had reverted back because Jim Lee might have done something to prove his worth. It could be his huge involvement in the DC Fandom project and everything that he's done to personally organize and design it. I don't know. So regarding his THR interview, I think he did a fairly good job, but granted, I definitely refer you guys to check out Jace's article, because he definitely takes an in-depth approach at analyzing that interview and going through, and he's more attuned to the sort of industry mechanics than I am. So, you guys should definitely go check that out. And on that, we're moments away from me making a pretty big announcement to you guys. So if you guys are hyped, I don't know. Leave me some sort of positive.
You want a drum roll, or you want a drum roll? You want to get to it now, or you want to talk about something else?
Fuck it. Yeah, let's do it. So Jace was talking about some interesting value in the comic books, going out, supporting comic books, buying comic books in the middle of this pandemic. Well, lucky you, because I'm releasing a comic book in the middle of this pandemic. So I do want to share with you guys a photo here, or the logo to my project, which is okay. Well, if this thing wants to recognize this, okay, awesome. Look at me butchering my own thing. This is great. Don't you love it? So the name of my project is, wow, I'm definitely getting too drunk for this, Area 51, the Helix Project. And it is a sci-fi noir 6-issue comic book series, of which the first issue will actually debut on Kickstarter September 1st. So if you guys are interested in checking that book out, make sure you subscribe to the channel, or you can follow me on Twitter at DarkKnightNat25 to keep updated. I am self-publishing this comic book through my own publishing label, which is Pocket Watch Press, which will be releasing more icons, more art, and things of that nature soon. But if I can make any statements on this project, it is that I've put immense care into making sure every bit of this comic book is as deliberate as possible. You know, for somebody who reviews comic books quite critically on the internet, I obviously want to make sure that my work holds up to the standards that I review them at. And
Well,
I can,
Dark Knight,
yeah,
can I ask you a question? Because I read Area 51. Area 51 is a subject that is ripe with conspiracy theory, and then I read the Helix Project. I mean, the title itself is quite provocative. It engenders a lot of probably expectations, preconceptions. Can you give us a tease, a hint what it's about, or what can you tell us right now?
So yeah, I don't want to release a hell of a lot because I do want to prompt you guys to go check out the Kickstarter when it launches, because there will definitely be a little bit more information there. But the Helix Project essentially is a U.S. government program that started in the during the Eisenhower administration, when the mass UFO sightings in Roswell, New Mexico occurred. And then obviously you come into the 70s, where a lot of that UFO extraterrestrial hysteria really built up around the country. And basically the Helix Project is the government harvesting what is essentially shape-shifting extraterrestrial beings and their biological capability to do so for wartime use. So they're using it for espionage, for actual physical combat, and a number of other things. This story is very much one about identity. It is about living in service of a memory of somebody compared to who they are in the present. And it's, as a whole, about moderacy. It's about understanding. It's about growth, right? Letting yourself grow beyond your own sort of inclinations. And for something that is very sci-fi and something that really evokes a lot of that, and on that being said, I have an associate's degree in molecular and cellular biology. So a lot of the science fiction is grounded in actual science, which is really, really cool. So if you're a science geek like me, that should be a fun little bit of reading. But aside from that, with all of the kind of craziness that I can bring to it with a comic book, and there's a lot of craziness, there's a lot of conspiracy, a lot of really cool sci-fi isms. This story is very much grounded thematically. It's about people, right? Because to me, the thing that makes fiction so great is that you're able to use such extraordinary tools in order to tell stories about the world that we live in. And that's very much, something that I try to push in the Helix Project, with obvious kind of implications to our own Area 51, the conspiracy surrounding that. And it doesn't hurt that, the United States government recently announced that they have procured extraterrestrial crafts, and nobody's talked about it. So yeah, this does harp on some real world events, but largely I think this is a story that a lot of people will be able to connect to on a very personal level. Aside from the fact that, again, we're going heavy, man. Like I'm doing my best to really evoke elements of the noir genre and the sci-fi genre and marry them into the best possible thing I can. And I know I'm being super vague, and I'm sorry, but I do want to let you guys know that more will be revealed in the Kickstarter. But I will share with you something aside from this super awesome logo made by one of my occasional collaborators, Joe's Geek Show. Awesome guy. He does have a background in graphic design. If anybody is ever looking to have him do some work, he did obviously a phenomenal job here on the logo for the project. But I do want to share with you guys a very, very early character concept art piece and I'm not going to tell you who the character is, And mind you, again, this is not super rendered, but I did want to share something a little bit early on for those of you who will, just spend the time to be a part of these conversations on the show and join us live. So if I can figure out how to do this thing on the computers, I will. Let's see. Forgive me if I take a moment. So this is a very early character design. And this is a rough idea of what the alien species will look like. And one of the sort of biological features that I had incorporated in my science fiction tale is, if you notice, his toes and his fingernails have very, very kind of wide padding. And it's actually incorporates aspect of protein receptor um, uh, sorry, I'm replication. And basically what one cool thing about their abilities are they use these receptors on the surface areas of their limbs and whatnot to copy the genetic structure or the molecular structure of any object that it comes into contact with. And if anybody is big into science and genetics, you know that basically our genetic library is basically this massive data bank of information, and they can store that information, and their body through neural connections can actually on command mutate their own biology to either shapeshift, to even just change like the density of their body in relation to something else. Like there's a scene where a character actually changes the density of their skin so that it replicates like rhinoceros skin. So things of that nature. And there's a lot of cool stuff coming into this book. Like I said, it's for something that is sci-fi. It is very much about people and about the world that we live in many ways. And the art is done by Marcelo Salazar, who is a brilliant artist out of Brazil. So, yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming up. If anybody has any questions that I might be able to address now, go for it. I'll let you know if I...
Man, I have so many questions, but I'm going to save them for when you come on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go easy on you. I'm going to grill you just like I would anybody.
Dude, listen, I'm prepared. I've been this book has somewhat been in development for over like a year now. And I'm really glad that I waited to do it because, to be 100% frank, I think I've become a much better writer in this past year. And if I can say anything, is that obviously I talk a lot on the channel, a lot about how capable the comic book medium is. But the sensibilities and the storytelling here pull obviously and take as much advantage as possible of what comics can do, but also carry sensibilities of prose, of poetry, and of cinema. There's a very particular scene, which is my favorite scene in the first issue, that I'm not going to spoil. It is very cinematic. I do a lot with the camera work, right? This book is very deliberate. I can promise you that every single panel matters. Everything points to something. Everything is either going to move the story forward, tell you about the characters, the world, who they are, or maybe even nod at a couple things moving on in the future, which there are some definite subtle nods in this first issue. And I can promise you right now, mark my words, that the last page of the first issue may or may not make your jaw drop. It is a stinger that I'm quite proud of. So it's yeah, I care deeply about this project, and I've spoken behind closed doors with a lot of my collaborators before, and I mean this. I don't want this to just be a good first comic. I don't care about that. I do not. I'm not looking for being adequate. I'm aiming to make a good fucking comic book, and I think that this first issue is a good fucking comic book, if I might say so myself. As somebody who is incredibly self-deprecating, I'm very proud of this, and I really hope you guys check it out. So please keep your eyes on the channel. We're going to be coming up with more soon, and obviously, through my own publishing label, Pocket Watch Press, there will be more things coming. I've actually been immensely inspired this week as I've been seeing more back from my collaborators on this book to write more stuff. So the fun does not stop there, and I'm super, super pumped for this project. I hope you guys are too, and I hope you'll give it a look. So for now, if anybody has any questions that I might be able to address, feel free to ask them. But yeah, You know, I don't know. I'm a little bit drunk, so this probably wasn't the best time to bring up my own book and to promote it, but I did it anyways. So thanks, Four Roses. Feel free to
Just
sponsor me.
don't describe yourself when you, on your Kickstarter campaign. You just don't share the fact that you're a recovering alcoholic. You might want to leave that part out. But
Fair.
no, I note that Aaron Vo has a good question that I was going to ask, but he's asked it in the chat. If you can put it up on the screen, and that is how was it that you came across an artist? Because you know we talked about art, and we I know we talked a little bit about manga art and stuff, and I. To be honest with you, Dark Knight, you and I I don't really know what your artistic preferences are. I know what artists you like in general sense, but how did you come across an artist in Brazil of all places? Although I know Brazil is a hot place for great artists. There's a lot of talent comes out of Brazil. But how did you come across your art? Who is he, and how did you come across him?
So Marcelo Salazar has worked for a couple of bigger independent publishers. He's done work for Image, Titan, IDW. And for me, when it came down to looking for artists, first of all, I wanted to get talent. You know, to me, making this comic book, I was not going to be satisfied with making a good first comic book, right? I want to make a great fucking comic book. And I knew that obviously I needed to do the work to find an artist who could help me make a great fucking comic book. And so regarding, you know, going and looking at artists in Brazil, Boom pointed out perfectly. Brazil is a hotspot for talent. A lot of kind of Latin European countries are hotspots for incredibly talented artists that don't quite have name recognition yet. And I explicitly went out of my way to look at various groups online and especially like looking for artists over in Brazil, because there's something about Brazil, man, where they're generating some of the best artists that nobody talks about, including guys like Eddie Barros, Robson Roca, and you know, you guys might be familiar with Ivan Rice. So I, you know, really just based on my experience with them, I was like, well, Brazil seems to be doing a pretty damn good job at making great comic book artists. So, you know, I set my eyes there and I found Marcelo, and basically I got in touch with him and I shared him a page of script to see how well he could follow direction, right? Because I write full script. I'm a very deliberate in the way that I handle my stuff. There will be times in that book, and there are times in that book where I give him a little bit more free reign to set up the page layout. But through my experience with comics and a lot of my consumption of cinema, I have a very, very visual idea of what I'm doing. So my scripts go down to the camera angle, right? Like the camera angle, the shot, what's going on, and even things that obviously aren't going to be included visually that I want to evoke tones of, right? Like, you know, if a character has felt great loss, you know, I bring specific instance to how they're feeling inside, right? Because how they're feeling inside will ultimately reflect how Marcelo will draw them acting. And that's a big thing for me. I want to make sure that everything matters. Every panel has to matter. Right? This isn't film. You don't go through millions of frames in a film. I have a very limited amount of space. So I found him and he was the guy. So yeah, that's how I came across him. And I'm so glad I did. Just to let you know, part of the team too. Some of you guys might be familiar with the name Taylor Esposito. He runs Ghost Glyph Studios, which is an incredible lettering design studio in comics. He's doing the letters on this book. And I frankly have not found a colorist yet that has really tickled my fancy. It goes to show you I'm very particular about what's going into this book. I have gotten submissions from about 25 to 30 different colorists, and I'm waiting for the right colorist to really do this book justice, because Marcelo is absolutely killing it. A lot of this influence is this kind of very noir sensibility, a lot of really darkly shaded black shadows to kind of give the illusion of depth and texture. And yeah, you know, and again, the Kickstarter, if you guys want some reassurance of how good Marcelo's art is, there's going to be some really, really cool promo art on there. Interiors of the book, a page or two of script, the A cover, the variant cover is in the process. And right now we're talking to an artist that I've actually spent a lot of time discussing with and may or may not have been on the channel before for an interview. So that's super fun. But yeah, I don't know if there are any other questions I might be able to address here. I know Antuhar has one. He says, what was the process like writing and communicating those ideas to the illustrator? Did you do thumbnails and concepts? No, I actually didn't do thumbnails at all. Really, I communicated very much through the script. Some of my, frankly, panel descriptions are very long. I'm very particular about the way that I handle it. And fortunately, Marcelo has been excellent at applying and reinterpreting what I have on the script to the page. And when it comes to communicating ideas like designs and whatnot, for the most part, frankly, design wise, I've given him a somewhat vague description of what I'm looking for, and I'm just like, go at it, because you're the illustrator, you're the professional visual interpreter, right, so to speak. So there are times where I give him feedback and we have to kind of revise things, but for the most part, Marcelo has done an excellent job at just interpreting what I've given him on the script and killing it. And the more and more I work with him, the more and more I start to give him a little bit more leeway. There is I think 1 or 2 pages in that book where I wasn't super confident in the way that I visualized the scene or the page layout, where I said, here's my idea, but if you think you have a better idea, like, by all means, suggest it, go for it. You are the visual artist. So yeah, I try to make this experience of collaborating with everybody that's a part of the project as smooth and as efficable as possible. But this is my baby as well. So I admit, there are times where I get very full script and very deliberate in what I want. So, we try to, I want to make sure that everybody enjoys working on this book and it's something that they're proud of, right? As much as this is kind of my baby, I just want to make this a pleasant experience for everybody a part of it, everybody who reads it, and everybody that gives this book in any way, shape, or form the time of day.
I like Mark McKeever had a question. Is issue 1 going to have 20 different covers?
So issue 1, as of right now, only has 2 covers. Sorry, speculators. But the variant cover will be more limited than the A cover. And I will say we do have various stretch goals to add other covers. So regarding stretch goals, I'll give you a little bit of a hint. The first stretch goal is actually doing an embossed cover for the logo and for the main figure in the art piece, to kind of giving a little bit of dimensionality. The second stretch goal is using gold foiling, metallic foiling on the logo to give it some pop. The third is a black and white artist edition of the book, which is super cool, including a black and white cover. And the following stretch goal after that is an entirely new artist doing an entirely new variant cover. So I am obviously trying to generate a great story. I've talked about many times about how over everything, the craft of the comic book and the storytelling is what matters most. But I do know that speculators are a huge part of the comic book market, and I do need to appeal to that. And even, the people that read mostly for story and the craft still want a little bit of that spectacle. So I am very much trying to give everybody a little bit of what they want in this book. And Mark McKeever also asked, is the Kickstarter for the whole series or just issue 1? Right now, it's just issue 1. Because to be 100% frank with you, investing in an independent comic book series like this, especially when I'm not being published by anybody but myself, is expensive. It's very pricey. And I'll tell you this, my base goal for the Kickstarter, I make almost no profit. Like, literally almost none. This covers production and of the physical printing of the book, to recoup the money that I've invested in my collaborators, because I am starting this project ASAP, so that by the time this Kickstarter finishes, I click print. Like, we're printing those books, we're sending them out as soon as humanly possible. Because although I haven't spent a lot of time personally being contributors to many crowdfunding comics, one of the things I've noticed is it takes months upon months sometimes to get these books to people, and I don't want to do that. Right? People are obviously putting money into my product, into my story, because they want to read it, and I want to get that story to them. So right now we're doing issue 1, and we might do issue by issue, and that seems the most likely. But if things go really well, and if we get all the support we need, I'd be glad to do a collected edition at the end of the project for sure. And again, all of the money that is made from this is going back into it. Will get invested into the following issue. So
I should add that, and I don't know, maybe Jace can jump in here, but what I like about it, and what I like about Kickstarter is I will routinely buy just the digital copies of Kickstarter. So what I like about it is that when there's almost no excuse to not support at least one or two or three or four or five different guys on Kickstarter, because for the same price, for an extra buck or two, you know, you can get a digital comic from a brand new creator making it on his own, and it's not the big two. And so, you know, I just want to say that in all seriousness, Dark Knight, I mean, you inspire me, and I'm 100% supportive, and I love your passion. I love you have a degree of egocentrism, and I mean that in the nicest way, because I'm an egotist too at times. I mean, hey, go big or go home. And I love the passion and the confidence that you bring to this, and the way and the manner in which you speak about it. And, you know, really, for anybody listening or anybody who comes to listen to this later on, I mean, look, for whatever, $5 or $6 American to get a project from a young, passionate creator. I mean, to me, this is a no-brainer. And, you know, I encourage everyone to spread the word, especially once this Kickstarter hits. And I don't know, Jace, have you supported Kickstarters yourself, or what's your opinion on that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I support Kickstarters all the time. In fact, Jimmy Palmiotti's coming on the podcast tomorrow. It's supposed to be Monday, but he had a scheduling conflict. But he's coming on to talk about his latest one, Pop Kill 2. I just supported Scott Snyder just announced one on Monday, Nocturnal. David Pepos, if people know him from what's that book he does? It's kind of like a Calvin and Hobbes if they were noir detectives.
Oh yeah,
I can't remember it.
But he got one that he just announced on Monday about it's a cross between like The Walking Dead and Oz, like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
So that he's coming on soon. So yeah, I support him all the time. I think it's a great. It's a great way to get something unique and cut out the middleman, you know, go directly. It's much more profitable for the creators when you get to the level of, you know, like a Palmiotti or a Scott Snyder. And Snyder's, his Kickstarter is actually for the first issue of a series that's going to come out from Image, but they're doing it. I've seen a few creators do this now. You get a hardcover of the first issue of the series, you know, with bonus material, and, you know, you get it months before it comes out, you know, in your comic store. So yeah, I think it's really great. I love that Dark Knight is putting himself out there. He's putting his money where his mouth is, you know. You know, he'd be the first one to admit that, you know, he's critical when he sees something that he doesn't think is right in terms of technique on writing, or, you know, the way the story flows. So looking forward to picking this apart, like word by word. No, I'm kidding. No, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see. And, you know, this is what you have to do these days. And it's something that I've heard Mark Silvestri over at Top Cow repeat over and over and over every single Top Cow panel I've ever been to. He says, it is so much easier to break into comics now. Like, you hear how hard it is. And don't get me wrong, there are more professional NFL football players than there are people making comics. There are more professional baseball players. When you think about it, there's one guy that gets to write the Batman comic. There's maybe 200 guys in the world that want to write it or more. There's one guy that gets to write it at a time. So it can be tough to break in, but at the same time, it's never been easier to get your work out there. Like, when a lot of these guys, you know, like when Mark Silvestri broke in, there was no internet. There was no really way to self-publish unless you're running off copies at what was then Kinko's and, you know, stapling them together. So it's so easy now to publish. Even if you just publish digital, you do a web comic on something like Webtoon or Tapas. And this is the way you do it, right? Like, especially with the cutbacks we're hearing about at DC, if you're a creator, they're not going to hire somebody because, hey, I can write Batman. Here's my pitch. Jim Lee, listen to me because I cornered you, you know, at the drugstore or at a convention or something. He's not going to want to hear it, you know? Like, if you want to make comics, make comic. There's no excuse. You know, that's what Silvestri always says. There's no excuse. If you want to be a comic creator, create comics. There's literally nothing stopping you. And then when you have a body of work, even if it's 3 or 4 issues, you take it to wherever, you know, a Boom or a Dynamite or Image, and you say, Aftershock, you know, you say, hey, look what I did. Here it is. Here's my comic that I, you know, put together. I wrote it. I, you know, sourced an artist. I got a letterer. I found a, you know, color artist, all that. And here's what it is. You know, it's got a finished book that you can show them, rather than, and, you know, at a con, it's hard anyway for a writer because you can't submit story ideas legally to an editor. You can't tell them a pitch legally unless they ask you to. It's much easier for an artist. You can show off a portfolio. Hey, you know, here's what I can do. Here's my sequentials. Here's my splash pages, what have you. If you're a writer, this is the best thing to do. Like, you take here's my comic that I paid for. Shows your passion, shows your dedication. You know, there's no excuses not to if you're a writer to do a webtoon, which, you know, doesn't cost anything but your time and maybe some technology if you need to purchase it, or do like Dark Knight is doing, you know, go the Kickstarter route. I'm going to be happy to promote it as much as I can, have him come on the podcast, talk to him about the process. And obviously we're not going to spoil, and then look forward to having him back maybe after the first issue drops, or, you know, have him back when it's time for the Kickstarter for issue 2, when we can talk, you know, in more detail, get a little more spoilery about issue 1, and, you know, talk about what people can look forward to in issue 2. So I've done it for other creators that have come on multiple times for projects, and even big creators like, you know, Scott Snyder and Jimmy Palmiotti, like I said. So I really believe in Kickstarter. I think it's a good platform. One thing I will say is one thing that really bugs me about it is when people abuse it. You know, a certain somebody who, I'm going to put out this robotic frog type comic, and I raised $400,000, and then it takes 18 months to get the comic out. And before the comic even comes out, I run another Kickstarter that raises like $60,000 to add one cover. And in the meantime, I have a new house. I just got a pool installed. Here's my brand new car. I can't, people are dumb enough to fall for it, I guess, but that rubs me the wrong way. You know, that's just taking advantage of people and taking advantage of, you know, kind of some anger there is out there. And so that's where I worry, you know, and we've seen other things too, like, you know, another certain creator who has created a character that rhymes with Red Tool, who did a Kickstarter for one of his books that, my understanding, 4 years later, people are still waiting for it. I don't think Brigade the Kickstarter stuff has ever come out. So yeah, but it you know, I trust that none of that stuff's going to happen with Knight. I mean, not only is he, you know, passionate about it, he wants his book to get out there so people can actually read it, you know, where some of these other people, maybe they were just hurting financially, or they're just looking to take advantage of their 15 minutes of fame. So yeah, I believe in Kickstarter. I think it's a good platform, and, you know, I can't wait to have the comic in my hand to read it. So I didn't name names.
Well, first of all, man, I'm very humbled by both of you. I appreciate it, man. I really did pour a lot of myself into this, just both mentally, financially, right? This wasn't a cheap investment at all. Like, to be honest with, like, not knowing whether or not this book is going to sell, and not knowing whether or not this book is going to be funded, you know, there were thousands of dollars invested in this book. And mind you, like, I just gotten a pretty good paying job. Again, and mind you, this is going into the comic book before it goes into my savings account, because I am passionate about making this project and making it something that is worth the money, you know, of anybody that wants to contribute. And, you know, Boom will tell you, I called him the other night, and I was debating, you know, various things on the printing quality. And ultimately, you know, he was talking about, he had said, I don't think anybody will blame you for, you know, probably a slightly less, lower quality physical printing of the book. And I was like, you know, at the end of the day, like, I want this to be something that people are happy that they've spent their money on. So both as a story, right? Because ultimately I'm a story guy. I want to make sure this is something that can appeal to people on an entertaining and on a personal level. But also, I can promise you that the physical product itself is going to be nice. It is well printed. I am making sure to spend that little bit of extra money to make sure that everybody gets a product that's going to hold up. And regarding that, you know, the first issue is 24 pages of actual story. You look at big two publishers, they solicit 24 pages. They're including like the ads or the covers, both the inside and the outside of both the front and back covers. This is 24 pages of pure story, because I want people to get every dime out of their investment in this book. And no, there are no ads breaking up anything. This is an experience. I want to curate an experience and a narrative for people to follow and really sink their teeth into. And just to let you know, the first issue is $5, which frankly makes me uncomfortable to even charge what professionals are charging for this book, but you're actually getting more story out of it. And at the end of the day, like I said, I'm pouring myself into this. I want to make sure this is something that's worth the time and the money that people spend to read it, to even think about it. So, if anybody is in the market for a new comic book story, a new independent comic book to support, the Helix project will be waiting for you September 1st. The Kickstarter will launch soon. I will come out with a formal announcement video in the very near future as well. But, for the diehard Let's Talk comic fans that hang out and become a huge part of this channel and the conversation in this community and decide to spend like 2 fucking hours just listening to me and my pals ramble about comic books. I wanted you guys to be the first to hear it. I fucking love you guys. And I hope you enjoy this book. And again, thank you guys. I appreciate the interest. I appreciate the compliments. And I can promise you that in the process of making this book, I am criticizing my own writing ability more than I did Scott Snyder and Death Metal. We're making sure this is coming out
really?
A fairly fine-tuned story. I'm putting on my hypercritical hat. Oh wow. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, because I asked myself the other night, what happens if I read this and I got something critical I want to say? It's like, am I going to be able to say something critical? Because I know you so well.
You better say it.
Wow. So it's, it's going to be interesting. It's good. So, I'm not going to lie to you. I hope it's really good. So the pressure's on, my friend, because, but anyways, we got similar sensibilities, and you're so passionate about this. I'm really curious. I got to admit, I'm very, very curious. I love the subject matter. It's right up my alley. I love sci-fi. I love conspiracy. I think that captures a lot of people's passion. Like, a lot of people love that. We live in an age where conspiracy and crime noir and all that stuff and good character-driven stories, if that's what this is, and it's sci-fi, I'm not going to lie, my friend, you've really piqued my curiosity.
I'm definitely trying. And you know what? To be honest with you, especially to those of my peers that review books, I would expect nothing less than an honest review. I want an honest review, because at the end of the day, as somebody who is selling a product, I want to better my product, right? And as an artist, I want to better my craft. So I openly take criticism. I openly take feedback, because ultimately, right, I'm not in it to write the same quality books that I'm writing right now, right? Like, at the end of the day, my ultimate life stretch goal is to be the next fucking Alan Moore, right? So I can't do that unless somebody shits on my books a little bit or my craft, and I need to do that to get better. But I can promise you that I really went through this with a fine-tooth comb. Let's see. I think Tevye had mentioned, you better have a good editor. And although I generally don't recommend this, I did edit my own books. Like, and my process was, I would write the issue, I would let it age, I wouldn't touch it for over a month, and I'd go back to it with fresh eyes. And to be frank, that process seems to be working for me, because I restructured, I would say, the entire last third of the entire first issue after coming back to it, to make sure that it was well paced, to make sure that visually we are sort of shepherding the experience that I want to shepherd. And if you can tell anything about my reviews and how critical I am, I was 10 times more so on my own book. There was absolutely no forgiveness for anything. And like I said, if it goes to show you, I've gone through 30 plus colorists trying to make sure that the art is done full service. So,
I heard a rumor. I heard a rumor, Dark Knight, that there's about 300 editors that you could probably get for cheap from DC that were recently laid off. So if you're looking for an editor, you could probably find one.
Yikes. That's rough. Well, I don't know, chat. What do you guys think? Too soon or no?
Nah, not too soon. There are tons of freelance editors out there, though, if you do at some point decide you want to.
That's it's something to consider, and this might be egotistical, but I frankly think I'm a better editor than I am a writer, if it's any indication by my reviews. So, when I go through my own book, especially being particular, and some of it is sort of the paranoia, right, of looking at my own thing and maybe being a little bit too critical at times. But I would rather be too critical than not enough, because I have seen, frankly, a lot of new and old comic book writers grow complacent in their craft, and that's the last thing I want to do, right?
Well,
And
that's true, but I'm just curious though. Aren't you a little bit maybe afraid of? Because I'm just thinking, often if we're too close to our own material, or it's hard to be self-critical, right? I mean, because it's impossible to eliminate our own inherent biases that we're unaware of. So that's where, there's an inherent risk there. So, I mean, I think that's risky on your part. So I'm kind of curious. I appreciate you waiting a month and then going back to it, but it's going to be interesting to see, because I personally, I don't really know, because I'm at the end of the day, I'm just a reader at the end of the day. And I like to, shoot my mouth off and my opinion and share my opinion, whether others want to hear it or not. But I got to tell you, editing, if I had to edit my own stuff, that would be tough, but I appreciate it's sort of like when I'm done writing an essay or something, or if I'm done writing a report, if I leave it a week and go back to it, I'm always making changes to it, because I see stuff I never saw before. But I've never written a comic book before, man. So that's interesting. So it's interesting that you're doing that, and I hope it pays dividends for you.
Yeah,
I mean, I think most Kickstarters, they don't have an editor unless they're from an established creator. So, it's not unusual. But I think if you can, financially make it work, the book's not, if you go out and get, you want somebody who offers freelance editing, who's a name, and there's a lot of good ones out there. Will Dennis, a bunch of guys that work with, really talented comic writers. Assuming you get somebody that you respect, it's not going to make your book worse.
Right.
But, I know the biggest hurdle to that is just financially. It adds so much, more cost to the book that you're already, and I applaud you for only charging $5. I mean, when you showed the tiers to us, I was like, seems a little low. And I get where you're coming from. It's the first time you're doing it. Nobody knows you. You want to make sure it funds. But, I support Kickstarters where it's $20 an issue. So, hopefully this makes some waves and people talk about it. And, next time you can maybe charge a little more and get paid for your work. That's
Well, we can only hope. And I mean, Jace pretty much nailed it. Regarding getting an editor, honestly, if there are very few professional editors in comics, to be frank, that I respect. Even then, they're professionals. They work for Big Two, Indie. So, at this stage in the game, hiring an affordable editor that is also talented is difficult, because, like I said, frankly, most professionals are not good comic book editors, right? Like, I feel like there are things that that have come across reviews in the channel that I come out and I'm like, who the fuck edited this, right? Like, who's looking at the storytelling here? Who's looking at the art? How are these things working in tandem? And there are guys like Will Dennis, for example, that I respect, and I've obviously shared a lot of love for folks like Karen Berger and Mike Martz, and but unfortunately, those are names that are not only packed with work already, right, that are busy, but finances are a thing. And like I said, I think there is a part of like my self-deprecating nature that made me pretty well equipped. I'm not saying the best, but pretty well equipped at editing my own work after kind of taking time off of each issue, right? Because I'm in the process of right now. Issue 2 is written, and I'm in the process now, after having written it a couple months ago, even going through it and with a fine-tooth comb and re-editing it and looking at it with fresh eyes. And some of those additions will definitely reflect feedback that I get from issue 1, right, to make sure I'm not making the same mistakes. And again, I don't always think it's a good idea for people to edit their own work. There's 100% a lot of caution to be taken in that. And if somebody is, I guess, narcissistic enough like me to edit their own book, there's no reason not to be cautious. And I am self-aware enough to say that. But at the end of the day, if you guys are on this channel, you've seen my reviews, and my reviews are almost verbal editorial critiques. And if those are things that appeal to you and you think, that type of editorial strategy, is effective, then that's that's the same strategy I'm going through on my own book, right? I will not tolerate mediocrity at all. And I can guarantee to you that I am putting everything into this book. And we just got a very, very generous tip from Aaron Vio again for $50. And he just has a quick comment here that I want to share with you guys. And because of that, because of Aaron being fucking incredible for us tonight, I actually want to make sure I can see exactly what the thing is sharing. Let's see. He says, "Congrats, my dude. Stoked for you. I appreciate very much the love and support. And because of Aaron's very, very generous evening with us tonight, I'm going to show you guys a page from the book. How about that?
Woo!
Sealed and inked. It is a.
He basically bought you a bottle. He bought you your next old fashioned there.
Aaron, man, I so very much appreciate all of the support you show in this stream, and hopefully this will reward that. This isn't a super high res copy. It's fairly high res. You're definitely not going to see anything pixeled, but this is one of the first pages that I had Marcelo do. So let's see. And this is very indicative of the style of this book. Whoa, wait a minute. Let's see. I'm definitely application window. There we go. So yeah, this is 1970s New York City, baby. Yeah, Marcelo does a brilliant job setting up tone in this book. I had brought up earlier, I very much stressed when it came to doing this book that I wanted a lot of very dark, sort of gradiated shading to establish the grit and the like I said, for as much as this is a sci-fi book, it's also noir. We're gonna evoke a lot of that sensibility and a lot of that tonality here. So, this is very much something that we go for. And Marcelo's brilliant. He's a phenomenal artist. He's so good at following direction and at setting up tone and scene and ambiance and atmosphere. And I cannot wait for you guys to see this book. I really can't. And
it looks really good. The shading in that image, that looks really, really well with the moonlight and the building and that's just black and white. That's really amazing.
I mean, thank you. I can't take any credit, man. Marcelo is absolutely brilliant. And if, like I said, as deliberate as I am in this script, he delivers 110% every time. He makes something better on the page than I could have ever imagined or tried to communicate through the script. So, yeah,
it's interesting. It's interesting because you got the rectangle square around a person on top of the building. So I'm imagining the next image might be focusing in on that rectangle. Would that be about right? Or
yeah, we're gonna get up close and personal with that character for sure. Yeah. And this is a foray into a very, very dramatic part of the book. So I hope you guys like this very, very brief preview. I so very much appreciate your interest, your compliments, your generosity. I'm sorry, like I said, I'm getting really into this bourbon, so unfortunately my brain cells are kind of wasting away for the evening. But man, I cannot properly describe how thankful I am, and I can only hope that you guys will continue to show such generosity and check out that book. And I hope it is a rewarding experience for everybody. But yeah, it's been a process. With that, we've been talking here for 2 hours and 17 minutes. And I want to say thank you very much to everybody who joined us live, everybody who was a big part of this conversation. I do kind of want to lightning round through a couple of these comments because I know I've been talking selfishly about my own project for a little bit. So we'll spend like the next 2 or 3 minutes kind of shotgunning some of these. We'll close out the night, and I will refer you to check out both of these excellent gentlemen in their platforms. If you're watching this in post, I'll re-edit the description to throw links to Jace's project down below. Having Jace on, as you could tell, was a little bit unplanned. So, but I do want to make sure you guys go check out his work. He does excellent articles, like the way he goes through the Jim Lee THR sort of interview, and obviously the podcast itself, and obviously Comic Boom's the fucking man. There's a reason that I link up with him all the fucking time to talk about comics. So yeah, with that, I will laud these guys in a moment, and we'll come through some of these live chats here. Taylor Pector says, aren't a lot of shops having distribution, I assume, issues? He means with Lunar/UCS. I'm happy DC broke away from a monopoly, but it seems a mixed result. I've very much seen a mixed bag from a lot of people, which is interesting because my LCS has had, I would even say, a majorly not great experience so far with UCS. And he had, before DC completely had broken off with Diamond, he had actually considered going back to Diamond for as much as he complained about him. But I don't know, things might be different for these guys. You know, Jace is out there. Is Arizona considered the Midwest?
No, it's considered Southwest, actually.
Southwest. So Jace
yeah,
is out there in Southwest America, Boom's in Western Canada. So what's your guys' experience so far?
Yeah, so I'm good friends with my retailer, so I usually check in with them when I get in there on Wednesday to pick up my books, and ask them how things are going, and sales have been really good. It doesn't hurt that the one other shop that was kind of in the same area that he was in closed. It had been open since like 1971, so they closed. So now there's only like one that's kind of down there in downtown Phoenix area. So I'm sure sales bumped up for that reason as well. But he's had a really good experience. He's using Lunar, which is DCB service, and he's been really happy with it. The only thing he doesn't like is the fact that the shipments get there on different days now, so that's not ideal. But so he will put the DC books on sale on Tuesday once he finishes all the pull box stuff. But since it hasn't been consistent, like some days it gets there on Saturday, and there's plenty of time to do that and get them out by Tuesday morning. Sometimes it's not getting there till Tuesday midday, and they still have to do all the, pull all the books for the subscribers and then put them up. So I just wait and I go in on Wednesday, but he hasn't had any troubles yet. A lot of what I'm hearing is more on the eastern side of things, which is Midtown or UCS. They seem to be struggling a little more. So I'm not sure what that's about. It may just be that they have a higher volume. There's more comic stores over there on the, a ton in Florida. Obviously the tri-state area, there's a lot. So that might be why they're struggling. But out here, I haven't heard of anybody having any problems. Not to say that they're not. I just haven't heard of it. I've talked to probably 4 or 5, 2 or 3 retailers that I am pretty good friends with, and then probably another 2 or 3 that I know tangentially, and they've all said to a man, "Yeah, it's been fine." So,
Boom. What about you?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate Dark Knight again on your comic book. That's fantastic. And I also want to give a shout out to Chase here because I love Jimmy Palmiotti. I've loved him for so long. He's been one of my favorite creators. Seriously, man, I loved him back in the Marvel Knights days, and 21 Down is one of my favorite series. And I'm so jealous that you're interviewing him. That would be an awesome. I've never interviewed a creator, but I would love to interview Jimmy. I'll definitely be watching, Jace. Or are you going to be doing that on YouTube or just on your podcast, Jace?
So I only barely started doing kind of the live stream stuff. And basically the reason I went down that path is the site I'm affiliated with, LRM Online, they wanted some more coverage of DC fandom. So we came up with the idea, hey, you know what? We're just going to stream it live, and we'll have our faces there, and you can see our live reactions, and we'll talk.
That's awesome.
So we'll see it.
That's awesome.
So when I set and Jimmy's been on like 3 or 4 times before, and it's always been just audio. So yeah. When I reached out to him originally, I just said, come on the podcast. I didn't mention anything about video, so it'll just be audio. But I may start trying to do more video stuff with creators, because I think people, tend to like that, especially if it's an artist. Obviously, you want to be able to, show the work. So for Jimmy, like I said, it was supposed to be on Monday, and it was going to go out on Wednesday, and then there was a mix-up, and so now it's not till Friday. So what I'm going to do, my interview's tomorrow with him at 3 p.m. Pacific. Literally, as soon as the interview gets done, I'm going to edit it and get it out. It'll be out tomorrow afternoon. And so Jimmy and I have talked about this for about 3 or 4 years, about having him come on specifically to talk about 21 Down. and what plans he had for the series. And,
Yeah.
So we're going to get into depth in
man.
that. We're also going to, I asked him because I didn't want to put him in a bad position. We were talking about what a great publisher we all think he would be for DC. And so I also asked him, I said, hey, do you mind if we talk some about that a little bit? I don't want to step on any toes or anything. He goes, no, I'm happy to talk about that. So we're going to talk about that, what he would do if he was in the publishing shoes. We'll cover his Kickstarter that's going on right now, Pop Kill issue 2, because obviously, we want to make sure that he make it worth his while to come on the show, right? And we'll probably gab about a few other things. One of the things I love about Jimmy, he's really active on social media, and he's always posting about the books he's buying, like he's been working on his Fantastic Four run and some other kind of stuff. So I wanted to kind of talk to him about his, hey, as a fan, as a collector, what are you getting jazzed about right now? So yeah, look for that. Hopefully it'll be up by definitely by 5 p.m. Pacific. It should be up tomorrow. So yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it. And like you, Boom, I'm a big fan of that 21 Down series. I just reread it again this weekend in preparation to talk to him. And I was like, man, this is so damn good. Like, why? Yeah. So we'll find out. Yeah. We'll find out tomorrow. So I'm glad we're going to get finally bringing Jimmy on to talk about that. We've been threatening to do for a long time. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure you guys go check that out. You can also go to any, like I said, in post, I'll edit and put the link in the description. You can go to any of our collaborations on the channel with the Comic Source Podcast logo on the thumbnail and click the description to find the link there. Otherwise, you can just type in the Comic Source on pretty much every major podcast provider, correct? Like I know I listen to you on Spotify, but
Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google. You can even, if you have an Alexa, you can even just say, Alexa, play the Comic Source, and it'll play my latest episode.
There you go.
So yeah, I'm pretty much everywhere. Just Google the Comic Source on, and you'll find my social media and all that stuff. So I've been around long enough that I've crept up. When I first started, there was actually a comic store that used to exist in Florida called the Comic Source, and I was always below them. But I've been around long enough now that I've left them in the dust. So
you've outlived them.
That's right. I don't even know if they're around anymore. They still have the reason I found out is because I went to buy the URL, and it was taken. And I'm like, man, and their site was still up. And this was back in like 2012. Like their site was still up, but it was looked like it was built in 1990. Like the interface was so old. And you remember back to the first, you probably don't remember Knight because you're too young. You're born after the internet already existed, but Boom, he'll remember those big chunky buttons. Remember the big chunky buttons, and everything was a hyperlink. Every text was always blue with the underline. Yeah, that's what this site looked like. I'm like, man, they haven't updated this site in 20 years. Give me the URL already. So,
yeah, I just wanted to say, Chase, you went out there. My internet connection on my end went out for a little bit there, and I never heard the tail end on the Jimmy Palmiotti thing. But I just want to give a quick 30-second story. I was in Calgary Comic-Con. Jimmy Palmiotti was there, and I asked him what the 13th issue of 21 Down would be. And he told me what his general idea was for the second season of 21 Down. And do you think I can remember a single thing he said? I remember absolutely nothing. Nothing. I went out that night and I was with my cousin. We got hammered that night. It was like, I was like I was just like nuts. And I couldn't remember a thing Palmiotti told me. It was like, oh my God. And so I want to know, because it ended on such a cliffhanger. The 12th issue, that final panel, it was like, I think it was aliens or some crazy thing. It was like, what the hell just happened? It was a complete about shift, the way that ended that series. It was like, and I was so curious because I love the art. That was my first experience with Jose Saez, or I always say his name wrong, the artist. Yeah, but I just love that series. And then I was so disappointed when it never went anywhere. I told Jimmy on I think on Twitter, I think you saw it. I want him to kickstart. I want to kickstart it for 21 Down.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. I've asked him before about getting the rights, and DC's never wanted to give them up. But I mean, if there was ever a time, with all the shakeup over there, because I've seen other creators on Twitter saying, "Hey, if you have a series over there that you want to you're hoping the rights revert back, now's the time." So I'm gonna ask him about that. It's probably, he may not even want to anymore. I don't know, but that is something I want to bring up. So yeah, I don't know if you heard me when I said, yeah, there's several things we're gonna talk about. 21 Down. We're gonna talk about his Kickstarter. We're gonna talk about him, what he would do as publisher of DC. We're gonna talk about his comic collection, what he does as a fan. So it'll be up as soon as I get done. Like as soon as the interview's done, I'm gonna immediately get into editing and post production, and it should be up by tomorrow by 5 p.m. Pacific at the latest.
Right on.
Awesome. That's
Look forward to
awesome.
it.
I'll definitely be checking that out. Because I'm between tomorrow and Saturday, I will be driving to and from New Hampshire, and I'll definitely need something good to listen to. So that'll be it. That's the move. So you guys definitely make sure you go check out that interview and Jace's entire back catalog there. As we come to a close, Mark McKeever, this brings a point to thank Aaron for his generosity for seeing that page. If that did happen to bring you any joy, getting that quick spotlight on an interior page, definitely drop Aaron a thank you. He's an awesome guy, super, super generous man. And, I really can't thank him enough for all of the support and really what that means to me as somebody who puts out content in a I would say generally a very thankless space. So it means a hell of a lot. And also for just being such a very positive presence in this community and adding such a unique voice to these conversations.
And Mark just said that Drawn to Comics in Glendale is his LCS. So he lives like Phoenix or Glendale, like basically where I live. And Mark, when I first moved here 5 years ago, Drawn to Comics was my LCS. But then I moved to North Phoenix, and it's just too far. And Samurai down on Indian School is right by is like 2 minutes from my work. So I go there now. But Drawn to Comics, yeah, that's a really good shop. If you're ever in Arizona, like you ever come to Phoenix to visit, I would recommend everybody go. They have a good selection of back issues, toys, statues, and they're really, really great people too. So yeah, definitely Drawn to Comics, good shop.
Cool. Yeah, we'll definitely make sure you guys go check that out as well. Speaking of good LCSs as well, my local comic book store, AJ's Comics, is actually doing a midnight release for 3 Jokers next week, which is super cool. Monday night, make sure you guys go check them out. Link in the description below to their website. And if you do happen to want to check out AJ's Comics, let's see here. If you go to ajscomics.com and you hit their shop, there is a super sweet bundle for 3 Jokers. I want to make sure you guys are seeing what I see. Okay. Down below where you can actually get, and these aren't even the A and the B variants. These are special Joker variants. You can get all 3 of them for $18, which is super great. You're pretty much saving the price of a regular comic book issue off of this because it retails for $7 a pop. So, you guys feel free to check them out. If you live near the Connecticut area, you can stop in the store to avoid paying for shipping, pick up the bundle with them. But I've talked very highly about them. They're my local comic book store, and the owner is such a good guy, very, very reasonable, and a great place to just kind of sit and hang out and talk about comics with, like-minded people. But yeah, make sure you guys go check them out. Midnight release Monday, if you guys have the time. Monday night going into Tuesday, if you guys have the time and are close enough. Otherwise, feel free to go check out their shop, which, if you like, I designed it. I just saying, did the thing. So yeah, make sure you guys check out AJ's Comics, and if you're interested, check out the Batman 3 Jokers #1 premium variant cover with the Red Hood, the Laughing Fish, and the Dynamite cover. And with that being said, I do want to close this on Aaron Vio's very kind comment here. And he says, "Great stream, dude. Congrats again. So stoked for you. You're so passionate about the craft. And I can only imagine how much effort you put into your first issue. I can't wait to read it." Dude, that means the fucking world to me. I very much appreciate that. And I can assure you I've put every bit of myself into making this issue the best possible thing it can be. And I appreciate very much your support, more than I can properly say, especially as a slightly inebriated man on the internet. But I do very much want to thank you. And with that being said, I want to thank everybody for joining us live and being such a big part of- Huh?
Slightly.
Listen, I feel pretty okay. It's okay. I'm feeling loose, but I'll stick with slightly as my adjective. But I do want to thank everybody for joining us live, being a part of this conversation, because nights like this 100% rely on people giving their thoughts, asking questions and whatnot. So you guys make this show. And of course, make sure to go check out my collaborators. The links will be in the description below. Like I said, unfortunately, we didn't plan to have Jason, but he was a pleasant surprise. So in post, I will be putting the link to his stuff in the description. Otherwise, you can very simply search The Comic Source on anywhere you consume podcasts. He also has his own website and teams up with LRM to post various articles and his actual podcast episodes. So check those out. And you can find you won't see us, but you could find our Ugly Mugs guest spotting on Jason's podcast as well, returning the favor. So make sure you guys go check that out. I know you have the Palmiotti interview coming out in the very, very near future, but what's been coming out in the recent space that the people should know about, Jace?
Yeah, I just had John McCrae. Speaking of Kickstarters, John McCrae has a Kickstarter going on right now. He recently came on to talk about it, and then we have the DC Fandom live stream this weekend. It's kind of where all my my focus is going, but we've also been releasing our X Tuesday episodes. Right now, we've been going through all the Age of X-Man stuff, which I just didn't realize how fascist it was. And it's weird that this came out in like 2018, 2019. And now I look outside my window and people are getting thrown in unmarked vans. And, it's like comics lately, they've been awfully prophetic, so it's been good. It's been good. It's been fun. But I've had a lot of creators reaching out to me lately, wanting to come back on. I've just been so busy with the day job. So coming up I'd say probably starting next month, you're going to see a lot more. I used to do interviews, creative interviews all the time, and we're going to start getting back to that and probably scale back on the reviews a little bit. So I'm sure nobody's going to complain, but I've got creators, kind of lining up, just trying to find room for them because a lot of people we're really starting to ramp back up. And a lot of people have projects coming out. And a lot of creators, like we mentioned, with Dark Knight starting his own, which, I'm so happy for him, can't wait. But a lot of other creators are cutting out the middleman as well. We mentioned a few, David Pepos, which it's Spencer and Locke. That was the series I was trying to remember. That's basically Calvin and Hobbes as their personalities, if they were humans, as noir detectives. But he's got one that he just started. Tynan's got a self-publishing horror comic that's coming out through his website. So a lot of creators are heading this way. So it's a good time to do it, I think, and you're going to see a lot of creators that are going to want to get their names out there and make sure that their projects are successful. So it could be the new model. I don't know. We'll see.
And Tynan's horror magazine, you can get a free digital copy.
Yep.
So that's worth noting. Boom. My brother, what do you got coming down the pipeline? What's come out recently that the people should know about as well?
Honestly, I've been so busy with work lately. I don't even. Well, I'm going to be reviewing collectively just probably some of the Dark Knight death metal stuff because I'm behind on that. And the best Wonder Woman series in the last decade has been Wonder Woman Dead Earth. I'll be reviewing the final issue of that. I already reviewed the first 3 issues, and I'm going to probably put together a few rants and raves if I got time on the weekend. To be honest with you, I'm actually looking forward to contributing to your comic book, and I'm watching. Honestly, Saturday I'd rather just enjoy Chase, and maybe I'll if I can slip on his stream or watch his stream. Even that's what I intend to do. Enjoy my Saturday, sit back with a Corona. I promise, Jason, I won't be too drunk, and I'll enjoy DC Fandom through your hosting it. So it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm really glad for those that didn't hear. So originally DC was going to have multiple channels going on, and even though they're going to replay things, it was going to be kind of tough to see everything in a 24-hour period because everything was only going to be up for 24 hours. They since have split it all out. So now it's just the Hall of Heroes channel, and everything is going to start at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and it's going to play straight for 8 hours. And then once it finishes that 8 hours, it's going to loop and play again, and then it's going to play. So it'll play 3 times total, but you don't have to worry about switching to anything else and having missed things.
Yeah.
Then again, on September 12th, they're going to do an on-demand, another event like this, but it's going to be on demand. So at certain time, like at 10 a.m. again Pacific, they will release, okay, here's 40 panels, go stream what you want. And then at 1:30 in the afternoon, here's 20 more panels, go stream what you want. Again, all that content will be up for 24 hours. So I'm glad they split it out. Yeah, I was like, how can somebody watch all this? Even in 24 hours, you couldn't have watched it all. So
yeah, I think, Jace, I'm going to ask you this question because do you think they learned anything from the disaster of San Diego at home? Is that why they made those changes?
I hope so. I think the biggest thing that I took away from that was that the biggest disappointment for me from San Diego at home was there was no interactivity. Everything was pre-recorded. I know a lot of this DC fandom stuff is going to be pre-recorded, but I'm hoping that they have at least a few things that are interactive, but I just don't know if they had time to make that work. Last weekend, there was a virtual Comic-Con called Mainframe Comic-Con, and as opposed to San Diego Comic-Con at home, Mainframe did all of their stuff live. And so, just like we're doing here, we had comments, you could ask questions and that kind of thing. But of course, the bad part about doing it live is if somebody has a time zone wrong or somebody, doesn't show up or has technical difficulties, power, I'm not sure why, but I did notice that the Ariel Olivetti, I think he's a Brazilian artist, which I was looking forward to that panel. He never showed up. So I don't know if he got the time wrong or the date or what, but that's the danger you run by not doing it pre-recorded. And obviously DC, AT&T, that would not go over. Something small like Mainframe Comic-Con, you can get away with it, but the devil would call you on the carpet if you made her look bad in front of her bosses. So I think most of it's probably going to be pre-recorded, but I do hope, and I think Jim Lee, DC and Jim Lee especially know this, because that's why they put out the call for questions. They put out the call for art. So at least, people can see their question being asked. There's one panel on Saturday where Jim Lee's going to review, kind of do a portfolio review of the art people sent in. So a little bit of interactivity, but I think the more interactivity these virtual cons can integrate into their experience, the more it's going to feel like a real convention and the more people are going to want to enjoy it. And take time out of their day. Because if it's just a pre-recorded panel, you can go watch it anytime. I mean, I know DC's only limited it to 24 hours, but it doesn't feel as special as opposed to something live when, you never know what could happen. You may be able to ask a question, even if they do it live and never release it, like a Hall 8. And I was talking about this actually on our DC Fandom live preview last night. Like going into it in the future when we can return to conventions, something big like a San Diego or New York, can you imagine if they decided to stream their panels live but we wouldn't, you don't want to take away from the fact that, well, now people aren't going to want to go or you're not going to feel as special if you go there. But let's just say for the sake of argument, you had to put in your badge number or some kind of code in order to access the stream. And so, yeah, I'm camping out for 24 hours or what have you, 18 hours to get into Hall H, but I'm not missing out on as much stuff as I normally would because at least I can stream the other panels to my phone or my iPad.
See, I think
that would be a great idea.
I think that's a way of them diverting traffic, though, because then, if you have to prioritize what you want to go to, there's less people in each queue. There's less, you know what I'm saying? Like it makes you
right. But I mean, but again, this might also help with that. If you could stream a Hall H panel while you're standing in line for another panel.
True.
Yeah.
That's true.
Something we were speculating about.
Yeah.
I mean, when cons come back, it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. I know you guys did a show about that. About are people going to be wearing masks? Or they're going to sell fewer badges? Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And it's always evolving now. I mean, nowadays, you get something released, a big release in a panel at a Comic-Con. The next thing you know, it's on the internet anyways. So, I guess at that point, you might as well beat them to the punch. But, with that being said, man, thank you, gentlemen, for shooting the shit, letting me talk about my book, and for being excited about it. I appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, man. Dude, I'm so excited. I really can't wait to check it out. Well, I can't wait. First, I can't wait to have you come on and talk about it and get me even more excited and tease it. And then, as soon as I have it in my hand, I'm going to be like soon as that package comes, ripping it open and devouring it for sure.
I'm super stoked, man, and I very much appreciate that. I'm sure if I wasn't like getting numb by the alcohol, I might be shedding a tear. But yeah, you know, if you guys are interested, please stay tuned to the channel. Make sure you're subscribed because I will be posting announcement videos, updates, things like that. I will likely be starting social media for my own publishing label, Pocket Watch Press. So in the meantime, if at any point you want to post about the book, share anything about the book, anything that I post, retweet it, whatever, please use the hashtags Pocket Watch Press or PWP, both, either, whichever one. The Helix Project, hashtag the Helix Project or Helix Project, and the hashtag Area 51. Those are kind of parts of our social media campaign to get people hyped to get this stuff out to people, right? Because that's super important. Nobody knows who the fuck I am. Most of my viewership doesn't even know my name. You know what I'm saying? So I could use all of your wonderful support, all of my viewers, and all of the people that participate in these conversations to spread the word. Kickstarter goes live September 1st. Again, I will be updating more via my Twitter, via the channel. So please stay tuned. I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. And with all of that being said, this has been another fantastic episode of Let's Talk Comics. We will see you next thing. Jesus Christ, the bourbon. We will see you next week to chat all things comics. And we wish you guys a good night. This has been Dark Knight Nation, Jace from the Comic Source Podcast, and the ever explosive Comic Boom signing out.